Down? Down, up, down, up.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, testing. Okay. Are we ready to start? I see Kenneth is looking at something.
Not to call him out or anything.
Good evening. Welcome to the City of Paris Planning Commission meeting, August 17th, 2022. And we're glad it's air conditioning in here. Today we should note that Robert Q is not here, so we have another person. You can, if you just go right ahead before we start, introduce yourself for us.
Hi, everyone. Yesenia Vargas from Alashire and Winder, Deputy City Attorney.
Thank you. And we do have our interpreter. I think he's sitting there. So we want to make sure, I want to mention him every meeting if I can. Okay. Okay, we begin this meeting with a call to order. And we'll all say our names. And I'm going to go through a lot more stuff today just to make as she gets used to us. Go for it.
Commissioner Gomez,
Here.
Commissioner Lopez,
Here?
Commissioner Jimenez,
Here.
Chair Hammond,
Here.
Vice Chair Shively.
Here?
Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to just have a quick moment of silence. And would we stand, and the Pledge of Allegiance will be Commissioner Gomez. Okay. In fact, let's stand now.
Your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin.
And before we get to the presentation, we just want to also acknowledge that we still have Zoom. So those people on Zoom are welcome to have, with our IT, our fantastic IT that's there. If we have anyone IT that has any comments, especially public comment or at any of these issues, we want to acknowledge that people still can get on Zoom. And even if we may or may not see them, but we certainly will hear them. Okay. I don't believe there's any presentations at this time where we have a business item. I'm sorry, public hearing. Consent calendar. It's been a while. I wish I could turn this. I can't turn this thing. Anyway, consent calendar. Planning Commission minutes for July 20th, 2022. Are there any corrections? I have some corrections, deletions, additions. And each time we speak, let's say our names for until she gets used to it. Okay. Let's see your hand.
None for me at this time.
Oh, okay.
Commissioner Gomez.
No?
This is Commissioner Lopez. I have no changes.
Okay. We have a few, and you knew it's going to come from me, right? On the page, we have June 15th, 2022 at the bottom. I think we mean July 20th. So if you check the minutes, it would say July, it should say July 20th. The other shocking item, which I'm sure says the mayor called for a motion. Yeah, I didn't realize I was the mayor because I don't remember being, I'm just joking, but yeah, it says there the chair called, but then the mayor was on there. So I think, I'm trying to think which one it was that said the mayor.
It's under A,
Yeah, under A,
6A.
6A. So, yeah, we may want to change that to the chairman call for a motion. Also, in the conditions for the project for the car wash and the steak burger, I think it's missing an engineering condition stating, and I think I stated that it should be a left turn lane added southbound, not just the immediate pocket, but a left turn lane. That's essential to that project, a left turn lane. So I think under the engineering condition, it says there's a landscape medium pocket, but it doesn't say left turn lane. That's the safety issue, so we have to have the left turn lane. Right now, so I don't want to rehash that, but it just should say left turn lane and then engineering condition. That's all I had. What happens when you're retired? You can get detail.
More time to read it.
Okay, yeah, you're right. No.
I skip.
At this time, is there public comment? Ooh, wow. Is there public comment on the consent calendar? Anyone in IT for public comment on the consent calendar?
No, sir.
I didn't think so. And any public comment on the consent calendar? Okay. Okay. I would faint if there was. Okay, at this time, we bring it back for a motion. Anyone?
There's no motion buttons.
Oh, there's no motion? Oh. Oh, they need a motion button, okay.
Unless you want to verbalize it.
Oh, we can verbalize it if you want. Okay. Okay.
Commissioner Lopez, I'll make a motion to pass it.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Lopez.
Commissioner Gomez, I second that motion.
Okay, and Commissioner Gomez is the second. Okay. Oh, okay. And we're ready for the vote. Okay. Okay.
You can call us out.
Call us out, yes. Call each one. Okay.
We normally put them in there after
Yeah.
our names are called.
Okay.
I mean, we lost our motioner and a seconder. Motion by Commissioner Lopez, second by Commissioner Gomez.
Yeah. We can verbalize the vote if you want. We can verbalize.
Commissioner Gomez?
Okay.
Yes.
Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez?
Yes.
Chair Hammond?
Yes.
Vice Chair Shively?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
If you may, can you state Vice Chair Shively before?
Yeah, I didn't want to.
Vice
I didn't want
Chair
to see you. Eric.
Hammond?
Okay.
With a vote of 5 yeses and 0 nos, this motion passes.
Thank you very much. It's a learning curve, guys, so we'll be patient. Okay. We have no public hearing items on the record, so we will move to the business item. Economic Development Department strategy. Marketing strategy. The presentation on the marketing strategy of the Economic Development Department. And we have Michelle Ogawa and her staff, and you can introduce your staff.
Yes, will do.
And the requested action is to throw out the requested action is the Planning Commission considers and discusses the marketing strategy of the Economic Development Department for staff to receive and file. Thank you, Michelle.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. Real quick, Armando is handing out hard copy marketing materials for you to follow along during our presentation. I'm Michelle Ogawa, Economic Development and Housing Manager for the city, and I have with us our management analyst and our management analyst Armando Panchi, our program coordinator Carla Lopez, who both function as the city's business liaisons and will be taking turns for the presentation this evening. We're here to give you a brief overview of the economic development programming, and we'll elaborate a little more specifically as requested on our retail attraction efforts. So to start with, this lists our general programming in the department. Excuse us, sorry. Thank you. We do workforce, these are programs that we administer directly within the department. So we do workforce development programming for businesses in the city, and this consists of relationship building with businesses, and we post their job recruitments, we advertise their openings, and we shelved them during COVID, but we plan to get back on hosting our own job fairs and career fairs on site at the city as well. You're all familiar with our Skills Center project. Once that's up and running, it'll give us the venue to develop and elaborate on our workforce development programming as well. We also, during the pandemic, shortly after the pandemic started, we formed the Small Business Assistance Program, and this was to offer relief to our local existing businesses to get through all of the things that brought about in our business community. We've also recently been approved by our own internal CDBG allocation for the next two programs, the Commercial Facade Improvement Program, which will offer aesthetic renovations to many of our businesses. Under CDBG, it will be restricted by geographic location, so there are businesses that may or may not qualify, but with the businesses that do qualify, we'll be offering grant funding without a matching requirement to businesses to fix up the exterior aesthetics of their buildings. Another CDBG program we were approved for is the Paris Employment Program. This was previously an existing program, so it'll run very similar. This is where we will cover the cost of hiring part-time interns for local residents ages 16 to 24, and we'll place them in our local businesses and get it as close in line to what their future career aspirations are. And then we also, most of our business attraction efforts are centered around the ICSC conferences that I'm sure you've heard about over the years. Here's some photos of us meeting with businesses. Specifically, one of these was the Panera announcement that we were able to make after this May. And then a couple of the others of us meeting with local property owners and shopping center owners that we'd like to have close relationships with. And in those business attraction efforts, we centered the materials you all just received around the development of those materials. Those are kind of a working draft. We center the information that we present in that very closely around the conversations that we have directly with businesses, brokers, and developers, and we'll go page by page through that as we continue through the presentation, but the information in there is deliberate with that in mind. So with that, I'd like to hand it off to Armando to start going through the materials.
Thank you. And you guys probably already know, but the tagline that we tend to utilize is we're in the center of it all. So, when we're developing these materials, we try to aim, to convey that message that Paris is in the center of it all. So the first page that you have in front of you is the new housing developments. And what we do with this one is we highlight all the housing development that is occurring in the city of Paris. We give information. It's very brief. It's just to give an overview, just a snapshot as to what's happening, whether the development has been approved, is it already being built, or it's in progress. But mainly, we try to outline where in Paris these locations or where these developments are happening, with the thing in mind that we know that business developers, new businesses, or just in general, they want to know the term, like the rooftops, right? How many they're always asking about rooftops. And you were able to highlight that number and give them an idea of, what is it that's coming to the city of Paris, because that eventually translates to what's in our second page, which is our demographics, right? So we do a quick overview of the population. We're close to that 80,000 number. We highlight the median age, the median household income. And at the bottom of the page, we do have a gap analysis. That one, I think it's important because we're able to highlight the opportunity. That one shows, what the demand is or what the supply is in certain areas, or, for business here in the city. And it gives the new businesses or the developers an opportunity to see what the potential is if they were to locate here in the city. The next one is the City of Paris incentive zones. So although these zones are not necessarily just here in the City of Paris, they extend out into the county area. We went ahead and we highlighted just the areas that are in the city, and it gives businesses an opportunity to see what incentives are there if they were to locate here in the City of Paris. Now, it's important to mention that we don't necessarily manage those incentives here locally. It's not incentives through the city, but they're administered through other local agencies here in the region. The opportunity page, it's one that we utilize to show the potential in the different areas here in the city. So we have highlighted the different shopping centers, for instance, the Paris Spectrum, and we show what businesses are currently there. And, from time to time, we tend to take this material or this information from marketing materials from different brokers. They'll go ahead and highlight that there's empty, or they want to fill certain locations. So we take this information with us when we're having those conversations to just, point out that there's potential in these locations. There's the other reason for this one is some businesses like to locate next to a particular business, different anchors. And, if they're were to see, hey, there's a Walmart at this shopping center, let's check it out. And it just kind of opens up the conversation for us. There's another one, the first one, that's the Ramona Neves location. That one's not developed, but it shows that there's potential. If they're interested in that location, we can at that point provide more information. We continue the conversation with them, and we, put them in contact with the property owners for those locations. So the next page is the Lib Page, and this one is where we want to highlight, some of the things about the city of Paris. When businesses are locating here in the city, it's not just their business, but they're also, building their business with the people from the community. So that's where we highlight, the potential as far as, the different colleges that are located in the area. That translates into, hey, like if I was to put my business in the city of Paris, we can pull people from, those different colleges. We also have, we highlight the, again, the demographics, some of the awards that the city has received, reasons, how the city, contributes back to the community. Because I think it's important for the businesses, to see that it's a city that cares for the people that, live here. If eventually they locate here, they know that they would get, that benefit as well, right? So it's just a brief overview on those sections. And then the following one, Carla will speak a little bit on that.
Thank you, Armando. Good evening. So this kind of ties into our live, work, and play. So I'll go over the work section first. So this one just focuses on how we are at the center of it all. We're right along the 215 freeway. We have 6 exits going on 7. We have over 25,000 people that work in the city of Paris every day, and that is not included in our population count. We also, of course, highlight our major logistics, e-commerce, and Fortune 50, Fortune 100, and Fortune 200 companies, such as Amazon, Home Depot, we have Wayfair, and more. And this is a great selling point because it's good to let other businesses know that we have these companies in our city. Moving on to the to the play. For the play, we highlight the tourist attraction. We get over 3 million tourists a year, and they come for our Lake Paris, the Skydive Paris, Drop Zone, Action Star, the Big League of Dreams, and all of that. So we do have a lot of tourists. Moving on to our contact information. We have our contact information there for the economic development team. We're available for any questions or follow-ups. We also advertise our Think Paris website. And I'll go over to show this really quick. Control, yeah.
That link worked on the computer. But we'll just show briefly. This is our, thank you, IT. So this is listed directly on our materials, and it's available, all of the information we just went over is available on the site, and we continually update it. So if ever the site is up and running, it's live, and we also market that along with our materials so that businesses, developers, brokers can visit the site and browse through it along with the materials. So that concludes our overview presentation, and we're open to taking any questions you might have now.
Thank you very much. Very good. And at this time, obviously, this is a workshop item. We're going to have some questions, I'm sure. Wherever we start, at least state your name for the sake of a newcomer here. And I've got a few questions, but I'll save them. I'll be nice at the end. So whoever would like to ask questions, there's a lot of good material here.
Yes, thank you so much. This is Commissioner Gomez. Thank you so much for the presentation, all three of you. This is a very nice spread. I really like the pages. I like the way it's presented. I think it does reflect the city of Paris. It's really nice. I do have a question in regards to opportunity. Which of the zones is the most popular zone that is attracting outside businesses? And can you tell us a little bit about why?
You're referring to the shopping center, those pages?
Yes, the opportunity.
Oh, that one. So yes, so we've seen, and I'm sure you've all have noticed, that businesses typically want to be in the commercial synergy center. So a lot of them ask specifically for locations close to the Walmart Supercenter.
Okay.
And now the Aldi, and then that branches out to the Paris Plaza location at Nuevo in the 215. Typically where those big names are and where it drives the most traffic, that's where we've seen the most retail synergy as far as inquiries and people wanting to locate there. And that's also part of why on the opportunity section, we do highlight those other sites that they tend to overlook, and we try to push those sites like the Ramona and Evans site that's currently vacant. And we do have conversations that have started around those. We just need to continue to develop those conversations. But I'd say the most popular locations kind of circle around that central commercial location just north of Nuevo and Paris Boulevard.
And I do want to mention really quick, even though they are not necessarily listed on the materials, there are other sites that we do talk about. Especially, once we start the conversation, we get to know what their needs are, their wants are, and, we try to identify those locations within the city. So just because they're maybe not listed in there, it just kind of serves them to, especially with the map and, the major shopping centers, to give them an idea of where things are happening. And then we can, let them know, hey, there's potential on these other sites that we might know about.
Okay, so it's safe to say that they follow like the big box stores, like whatever is like the largest and where the most attraction is of, purchases or retail shops that customers come to. That's where they tend to go. Okay, thank you. That's my first question. Thank you. I'll be there for now.
Oh, I know it's the first. I know you.
Commissioner Shively's question. Has there been much interest in the area around Walmart Shopping Center that borders along the frontage of the freeway. It's not great access from getting off the freeway along Nuevo. But it's the area, land available west of
West of the Walmart
Walmart shopping.
to the freeway. That is under, I believe that's under the Harvest Landing specific plan. So there has been some commercial discussions around those zoned areas on site, but I believe there's other discussions on that particular area. But we've seen more interest on that property along the Paris Boulevard side.
Okay. Is Commissioner Lopez coming?
This is Commissioner Lopez. My question is in regards to the Paris Employment Program. I noticed that you guys are targeting the youth. What methods are you guys using to entice more people to be involved or to get more people involved?
So once we launch the program, it'll be primarily marketed general social media, but we'll also market it in the schools. We'll contact this school district admin, high school district admin that has those ages. And then we'll also work through our YAC to market to their cohort. And we'll also take suggestions if any of you would like to help spread the word directly. A lot of that, we've learned that locally the word of mouth goes pretty far in Paris. So we'll also share with Planning Commission Council and let you all share that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I do think that teaming up with the schools is going to be a great way to do it. Also, I had a question in regards to the gross regional product. You guys have a figure of $3 billion. $3 billion. What exactly does that figure mean, and how does it compare to cities in the neighboring area?
The gap analysis?
Yeah, so the regional product, we're not just talking about Paris, but we're talking also about the vicinity of Paris. And, that just kind of highlights the potential for them to either come in here and they know that they're able to tap into or to obtain the products that they need to generate what they're going to produce. I believe it just to give an idea of what's coming out of this particular region.
Got you. All right, thank you.
Gap analysis also serves the leakages serve to show the local money that's going elsewhere. So it's basically to get the message across to businesses that if you're a grocer and you locate here, these are the sales that you could capture locally, and they won't have to go out to county areas, north, south, Menifee, Marietta, Moreno Valley.
Commissioner
Beautiful presentation. I really like
Commissioner
the
Jimenez.
material.
I know.
Oh, Commissioner Jimenez, sorry. I forget I know who I am.
They got on me. They got on me. So I said,
Okay, beautiful presentation. I really like how it's pinpointed. It's very clear, concise, so even if someone is just kind of browsing through it, it's very quickly to see important information. So I was not listening. I was going into their Think Paris website. It's also beautifully laid out. When you look at the economic development and businesses, it goes into a lot more detail, breakdowns about job opportunities, postings for jobs, different, categories of employment that we have within our city and what we do. But I would like to expand our Play in Paris because I'm looking and there's only 5 things. And when we're looking in the handbook, there's so many more things that we have in the Play Paris.
Okay.
So when I look at the website, I would only see the March Air Force Base, Big League Dreams, Skydive, Lake Paris, and other attractions, which catch some of them. But I feel like it's so beautiful, we can kind of expand a little bit more. And I like the details, little subtitles in the bottom. I guess, just for clarification, when I was looking on here, it said, on the opportunity one, it says, for example, number 3, I-215 freeway visibility, and then it says 161,371 CPD. Would you please clarify on what CPD means?
That is cars per day.
Okay.
So that's another metric that businesses, brokers, developers, the people involved in site selection like to pay attention to is the general traffic that you already have without their location, with or without their location.
And what do we need to do to get those on the other ones? Because the only ones that have those metrics are their 2 busiest that you mentioned earlier, are the ones that attract the most. what do we need to do to get those metrics?
We can look
Ambulance.
into the cost of a study for our larger intersections and roads, and we can cost that out and look into doing it ourselves. I'm going to be honest with you, this information, as Armando mentioned, came directly from broker brochures, so we borrowed that information to add to ours where we could.
I'm just thinking because if we don't have a lot of traffic, for example, in Ramona and Evans, and I know it's a thorough way to get to other cities, I think that one would have a lot more cars per day, and it would help attract some of that marketing elsewhere.
Okay, yeah, we can look into that. We can look into costing that study,
Just
and
to-
if not citywide,
Or
then
if
we
the
can.
broker already has one, maybe we
Yeah,
can.
yeah.
We
just
can
to-
do that.
yeah.
So
a very
we'll
good
ask
point.
around first.
That's a very good point. I just want to piggyback off of Commissioner Jimenez. Do we have our own traffic studies, right? Can we reach out to the city engineer for that information?
Good evening,
Good evening.
Commissioner Gomez. Yeah, we do have recent traffic studies for that area that we can provide that information.
That'd be
Yeah,
wonderful.
we can definitely share that information.
Bridge
with-
that
with
gap. And it's internal too, so it's more accurate. Thank you.
One more. Back to Commissioner Jimenez. Before someone corrects me. I don't know what the likelihood is of adding. I noticed that we go into a brief description about our schools, but I know that a lot of our schools are ribbon award-winning, very high achieving schools that have students that are admitted into very prestigious colleges. And I think, you know, as a parent, that's also something that attracts me because I know people go into those websites and see how their school's rating before they decide where they want to live. So maybe a Learn Paris section about demographics about our schools. I know one of our districts just won a recognition that is a statewide recognition for what they did during distance learning. And a lot of the schools within our communities earn that as well. So they have the district bridge and then they have the umbrella and then schools as well. So we could provide some information. I think, you know, people come, they live here and they might have connections to people that might be interested in investing in our city with something like that. And especially to assist with the employment, to piggyback off of Commissioner Lopez. I think that helps market our students because we're targeting that 16-year-old starting point. If they're coming from like nationally recognized schools, I think that will also kind of increase our employment market.
Yes, thank you, and that can be easily incorporated into the materials, just on the live section. So, and we do also edit these and print them directly as well, so we can modify things like that to add facts here and there.
Okay, because I've got a few. Did you have some?
So let me.
Mr. Shively?
Follow-up question. So you state in one area that we have 9,000 homes coming up, and then another area you got 9,032 homes coming up. And there's another area that says you have 120-something thousand cars per day, and then another one says 100,000. So there's a little bit of inconsistency between the numbers on different fact sheets. Might be beneficial. Yeah, I mean, just, just trying to get the numbers, look correct everywhere. But my question was, so if we got 9,200 new homes coming up, what's our current housing stock?
What's our current, I'm sorry?
What's our current housing stock? How many keys, if you want to talk about rooms or doors?
We can add that. I don't have the number off the top of my head. We look at more, it kind of the residential development, the way it's presented, complements our existing population. So I don't have that number for households in the area, but we can definitely look into adding it and incorporating it, the existing stock and what's in progress.
Chairman Hammond, I think that's on a Kenneth thing, because the finance talks about 21 or 22,000 households in Paris when they make their report. So there's probably 21,000 actual households in that number. There may be more because they built more new housing, but that's finance, and I think people, that's a city thing. So that's one of those numbers that I've heard before, around 21,000 actual households. May not be the number of, new units, but actual households, which includes everything, apartments, multifamily dwelling, the whole bit, over the last umpteen years. So I think that's one of those things that could be the number of actual households, which when they say they want rooftops, you tell them it's 22,000 households, 9,000. That's a little bit more specific. I think that's what you mean. There's more specificity. So we could say there's 9,200 homes, but there are 22,000 households. Oh, I'm coming to Paris. That's what you want to hear if you're a big giant one. Well, I want to there's 22,000. 40,000 households, I'm definitely coming, right? So it's a numbers game. So am I right on the right track?
Yes, you're on the right track. I guess the data that the people, commercial brokers looking for, they're looking for population, and
Right,
somehow
right.
they're dividing those numbers up.
Right.
But the 9,000 reflects a lot of our specific plan that are still in process too. We want to highlight all those numbers, the potential. It doesn't mean that 9,000 will happen in the next 5 years, but it just highlights the potential that exists here.
Yes, to just on the same topic, on the Paris by the numbers
Commissioner
page.
Gomez.
Commissioner Gomez,
She was going to get it to.
you are the chair and the host. It's all good. I do see the information under where it says median income household or household income. The asterisk is using the 3 census tracts. Which census tracts are those? Just the national census? These numbers are very appealing. But as a developer, using a developer mind standpoint, I'd like to know where this information is coming from, just so it gives it more validity when I'm looking into building in the area. If you have seen some of our past meetings with some developers, they try to tell us what our population density is at times. And because we're so involved with the community, we tend to know better. And so if we had that formal information, especially on these, it would give us more of weight on the numbers that we're providing to them. And so that would be interesting to know. And that way, if they probably won't even have to reference back, but it definitely gives it more weight.
Definitely, and the materials are kind of, they function as more of a conversation starter, and then they link to things on the website or things that we can follow up on. And so this page on the Think Paris website elaborates further on that information, and
Okay.
within those it has, I believe, breakdowns on the sources, but we contract with a firm to put together this data for us. So we can definitely, whatever information is not already included in the site by explanation on the sources and where we got these numbers, we can definitely look at including that on the site, like in the top banner or something like that.
Yes, I'm very picky about that. So when I go onto a website, I automatically go down to the asterisk and find out where the information's coming from to give me a sense of security that I'm looking at actual numbers and not just inflated or deflated numbers.
Yeah, and the website does have the sources for the data on every.
It does says get the data on there. I see that.
And I believe when we reach out to the person that, or the company that helped us build this, we did focus on, I believe it was the 3 zip codes that are within the city of Paris. Just to paint a better picture about, the actual city and not the, we also talk about sometimes about, the county area, but we focus mainly on the city.
Okay, yes, city, definitely, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Jimenez. You were waiting. I think, piggybacking off of that, amazing information for the opportunity page too, because I know that was always a response we got when we were trying to market and say, oh, come to this area. They're like, not enough rooftops per whatever. So I think if we have that information along with like the cars per day, am I right? That's what it was?
Yes.
I think that would help us market a little bit more. Yes. And, you know, I appreciate that you're trying to be very concise and not trying to add too much, because then people see it and it's like, yeah, no, too much reading, I'm done. But I think those key factors too would help. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, are you ready?
There.
Now you're going to wish you didn't show up. I'm going to go through a list of things, and I'm probably going to spark more questions. So get comfortable. First, I'll say the term that is used is span of control. So when you have areas outside of your city, you'll look at those demographics, you'll look at the general plan, but then there's those areas that like Meade Valley that are outside the span, but they're within the span of control of the city. I won't get too technical about that. That's just being here 20 years and knowing it, okay? All it is just being here too long. Okay. So that's why they incorporate all those figures and numbers. So it's not just Paris, but those people drive into Paris and shop too. So that's what was meant by Commissioner Lopez. Let me start with number one. These are all suggestions. Great job. And I appreciate it. We need to see it more. Now you see it. Number one, having worked in housing, it's called BIDS. Now, you may or may not know what BIDS are. Business Improvement District. One of the few things I'll say about LA, and there's very few things I'll say about Los Angeles. But business improvement districts really talk about where small businesses in the area will help clean up themselves and not wait for the city. Why is that important? And that's an important economic incentive for yours, also code enforcement. When you have bids, the businesses clean it up. In LA, they have these purple shirts and they go around sweeping. The city's cheap. But the city doesn't want to go around doing all that, so you patrol your own area. Okay. That works. That will work in Paris. When you start doing D Street development, you start doing these things, okay, they're the weeds. You clean it up because you signed on to do it. I want to keep my property clean, so you have a business improvement district. So that's one reason. You have the downtown strategic plan. If you start doing it, start the concept now. You may not have to do it now, but it's a concept. Number two, I'm not going to say what I had to deal with the Chamber. The Chamber of Commerce should be a part of this. I don't see anything on here about the Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to say publicly as a transparency, I was asked to be on it, and I told them bye. I'm not going to do it. I'm sitting here. So I don't want any conflict of interest. I'm just telling you public, I had to refuse them. But the Chamber of Commerce needs to be on here, and they need to be a part of this. Because they're the ones that do the permits, they're the ones that they're supposed to be the front and center, and this information comes from them. Why are they not here? It's not your fault, they need to be actively a part of it. Number three, change the Orange Railway to Southern California Railway, because it's not called Orange Railway Museum. They hit the roof if they see that, okay? So it's Southern California Railway. Fourth, get a video presentation or whatever they call it today, and you've got some great people like Mr. Vargas back there, great young people how to do it. Video, hand it to somebody. This information is good, but not everyone's literate. Get it in Spanish, get it in other languages, but you want it quick. I want to see this stuff. I want to see the big league fields. You got so much stuff here, it'll take you 2 hours to get through a video. Yes, the video sells, not the talk. Okay. It might sell to developers, but you want your citizenry to be shown in the best positive light. So they weren't here when they opened up that big league field gym. I was. I was here when they opened up the swimming thing. All that stuff, I was here. But you also have skydives. Show them dropping out of the sky. This is what attracts people. That's what gets the houses. That's what gets those things. You see the effect? This is my PR thing, my dream of a lifetime. So video presentation would be number one. Okay. This could be a link. What you're showing here is perfect, but get it a link, because the average Paris person, I work all day, I have 3 jobs, I have kids screaming. Okay, you're dealing with businesses, right, and retail. You want to hand them something quick, because you don't want to have them look at 2 hours of stuff. This is quick, this is what your city does, and there's a lot to sell. But you have to sell it fast, and it's to sell it visual, right? Okay. So they see Lake Paris. It's not part of Paris. But you see Lake Paris. You see these things, it's like, wow, but then you see the rooftops. Okay. So as you develop, you start adding to it, and I think things like that. Now, here's the reason, before I get to the other point, the last one. One of the reasons not to mention we've known each other a while, Michelle, so I know how professional and great you are, okay? One of the reasons is we have business parks, and we have those kind of opportunities are being squeezed. And so economic development is going to tie into a lot of the things that we're looking at in the future, because we're talking about entertainment, lack of venues. The retail's taking over so much. I'm saying, how much really space do we really have left for business park? It was presented at a meeting, but that's going to affect your economic development. So we start putting a squeeze on all this other stuff. You're going to have these entertainment venues. I don't know if I should legally mention the one, should I? You know what I'm talking about. Leave it alone? Okay, I'll leave it alone. Okay. There was a presentation, I won't mention it, that I thought was a little over the top. We'll talk to you about it after the meeting.
Okay.
But they were putting it on the website, on YouTube, and I was shocked. And you know what I'm talking about. So that, we can't be surprised like that. The process, and here's a question though. The marketing strategies are great. When we have the economic development, and I know it's a great department, but as people come in and they want to do things, for instance, I want to build a store. The process, do you meet with them first? Do they meet with you first? Do they meet with, who do they go to? We have our ad hoc, but that's just a planning issue. In terms of, I want to build a 600-room hotel, who's going to talk to them first? Are they going to, have you written letters? Are they going to communicate with you, and then it goes to Kenneth, and then it goes to Patricia? Yes. And then, does it follow that? How does that work in terms of that relationship? Because they're coming here, they're asking for the things, but who gets it first, and how does that work? General strategy.
General strategy is we actually, there is a lot of business liaisoning that's built into our development services. They don't need a lot of push. So we typically try to funnel them to them directly first to take out the middleman, and then we let them know through our business liaison function that if ever they need more communication or just an update or clarification, or if they'd like a meeting with the planning manager or development services director, then we can help facilitate that process. So we kind of let it be known that we're here to assist in that process, but the preference typically is just to funnel them directly and have them communicate directly with the departments.
Oh, okay. Okay. And there are many examples of things that are proposed to come, but I guess the idea is that, for instance, if the hotel issue, I'm not going to go into details because I know things I'm not going to talk. But the idea is if you've been writing letters and they come back to you, even before we can talk about anything else, it has to go through them. And so you funnel it through them, but you're the liaison in terms of these statistics, the opportunity zones, and explaining all that stuff. Then if they want to get more serious about talking, we're not discussing it, but it would go through that committee. And then you would still be a liaison with them if they haven't proposed it yet? Or they're in the process of
At any
proposing?
point through the process, we'll facilitate and we'll
Work with
conti- Right, yes.
Okay.
We'll get them the right information
Okay.
from the experts, and then we just kind of fill any gaps if there are any that come up,
Okay.
so that they know that they can contact somebody and get answers. And oftentimes, it goes directly.
Okay. I think for me, this is an excellent information presentation. It always is. And I'm sure we may have some other questions, but keeping us up to date, and I know it seems like we're nitpicking, but now you see why, because in planning, you have a general plan, you have a downtown strategic plan, you have all these things, but that needs to be incorporated. You need to know about that as much as we do, because if you have certain planning things like form-based codes and things like that, that's more detailed. But if they're going to come in this area, like the city owns property or whatever is going to happen, that general picture is going to be in line with the general plan. So if we have a certain amount of office space, a certain amount of open space and things like that, it affects what we do and affects who comes here. So that's one of the reasons. So getting a knowledge of what we have, skydive and all these wonderful things, and then what comes next to it, we can make a better judgment of, should there be this next to that? Should there be that next to there? Is retail something that should be there? Or if someone's proposing commercial, then there's changes in zoning. So you see how the two intermix. So it's good to know what's going on in the city, and the council obviously is number one. But because of planning being the way it is, mixed-use development, things like that start coming down, then we start looking at, is commercial possible? Well, what is the rooftops? What is the median income? Those things they look at, and we start saying, yeah, we got plenty, but we don't have any statistics. Okay, so if we start changing those business areas and open areas, then we start reducing that number of acreage. It makes a big impact, as you can see, and there's only certain places you can put a lot of these things. Okay, so that's one of the reasons. Just getting a better picture. I hope our commissioners have a better understanding. If you have more questions, go for it. But I really appreciate the slick presentation, and WorkSource, working with WorkSource, working with the county, but most so what's in the city of Paris. There's a lot of entertainment venues. There's a lot of stuff in the city of Paris, and I think that's important. But then we have retail, and this retail issue is a big issue, e-commerce. But there's a sales tax, come on, we can't get away with it. But that's an issue, and there might be an overabundance, but then that's what we have. So we have to know what we have for the future. And so I think, and it's part of the planning process, and even the League of California Cities presses, they want us to do a lot more than what we're doing here. Okay, I'm not going to do it, but because we're not the city council. But the idea is that they start looking at things like how does this fit planning into economic development. Almost everybody else does planning. That's Riverside, right? You have the mark coming. I bet that wasn't done in secrecy, right? So the idea of using facades, mixed use, walking, parking, all that affects, they're coming, that affects planning, that affects engineering. Okay, do you have the infrastructure for it? That's another question. So I want to build this thing. Well, are you going to have these infrastructure costs and water and all the other issues? Oh, well, it's a little more than we thought. Oh, there's a secret process. And we didn't realize that. Yeah. Well, you can want a lot of things, but then all these costs get added. But anyway, I don't have anything else. I appreciate it. We didn't beat you up. I promise you we wouldn't today.
Thank you.
We go easy on you. And unless you have any other questions, go for it.
Just a matter for personal information,
You know
Commissioner
who
Gomez.
this is, right? She almost.
I'm interested in knowing how the department works and how it sets its goals for the year or quarterly, and where those goals come from, because I know that the drive for economic development comes from the city planning and how, the city, what the future is or what the road looks like. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so our programming goals are scoped around more so what we lack here, what we need, the needs that we have. So just a little bit of background, the Small Business Assistance Program that I mentioned before, we funded that with a previous incentive program for a full-service sit-down restaurant. So that funding was actually set aside to incentivize a full-service sit-down on the business attraction end. And then we kind of morphed that once the pandemic hit because there was more of a need on the business retention side for our existing businesses. So that's how we funded that program, and we were able to streamline the process and create it much quicker because it was all internally funded. So that's just kind of a little description and example of kind of how we set our goals. It's driven from the community, from council, planning commission, and in general from the retail mix needs, from the workforce needs. It's very catered to be flexible and to suit the existing gaps.
Thank you. And my other question is, this is on the development side, so when you get developers that you're talking to, potentials, can you share what their feedback is, either whether it's positive feedback or negative feedback or opportunity that they're looking for specifically that we may or may not be providing in the city of Paris?
So I can tell you that, I've been attending the ICSC conferences and trying to get in front of businesses, developers since about 2015. And I can tell you that we don't get a lot of negative feedback, not all yeses and not all jumping on sites and developments, but we do get a lot of positive responses. We get a lot of feedback in recent years that Paris is on their radar. They just need to zero in on a site, which involves a lot of different things. They do their own internal market studies. They have their own criteria, which they so far haven't shared with us, their own metrics. But then what they do is we establish the contact and build the relationships with them so that when they have a question about a site or when they zero in on a site, they reach out to us for the process, and then we loop in the development services team. And we also try to get out in front of it, and we try to offer tours throughout the city. That's another thing that the layout of the opportunity section is useful for, is we kind of plot it there, and then we see if they'll come out and let us drive them through the city, and we do all of our pitches at the ground level. I can tell you also, years ago, we did get a lot of negative feedback. There were
good to know. Yes.
And it did circle around the demographics, the lower population, lower median income from 5 and 10 years ago, and we got a lot of no's during those conferences. But we've seen that change a lot, and a lot of that is what went into our marketing efforts. So anybody who remembers what they heard about Paris 5-10 years ago, we can show them that it's different, and then if they come out for a tour, we can show them ground level that it's different, and we can have the data to back it up and the narrative that we share with them.
Thank you. I appreciate your answer, because when we're out in the public and we get these questions, we tend to want to know, what is it that is attracting? Why aren't they out there looking or scouting? That's pretty much what they're asking you to do, is go scout these companies and convince them. But we know there's a process. We understand that there also has to be, they can't come in here to the city if they're not going to make a valuable profit that's going to allow them to function and fully provide all the services that they have. So that was the reason why I asked that question. So very, very clear answer. Thank you.
We also try to build close relationships with the property owners, because even without their internal market study, all of their criteria, their want to come to the city, they still have to find a deal on a purchase or a lease. And so we also try to build the relationships with our existing property owners to try to get them to want to help the ones that want to locate here that are our priorities.
Yes, thank you so much.
You good? Well, thank you very much. I guess we'll let you off easy. There's no vote on this, I take it. Do we want public comment? Yes, I thought so. Wait a minute here. We open it up, even though it's not a hearing. Public comment for anyone on Zoom?
Chair Hammond, there's no participants on Zoom right now.
Okay. And anyone in the audience? They're not going to. Okay. Yeah, okay. They know better, right? Okay. Okay, thank you very much. We want you back, guys. We do want you back. Okay, thanks. Okay. Okay, here we go. We now come to business item B, 7B. I wonder who brought this up. Car wash inventory. Wow. I'm the troublemaker. Presentation on the number of standalone and automatic car washes in the city of Paris. Requested action. Planning Commission considers and discusses the number of standalone and automatic car washes in the city for staff to receive and file. Oh my gosh, we got a community service director. Wow. That's serious.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. I was hoping that I would be able to avoid these type of presentations, becoming director, but those days are not here yet. They will be here one day. So as you made the request at the last Planning Commission meeting, you wanted an inventory of car washes in the city. As you know, there's two kind of different type of car washes. Generally speaking, there's a car wash, we call it kind of a car wash that's associated with a gas station. And those types are typically one or two stacking, and you just kind of, if you've gone through any one of those, it just goes really quickly. And then you have your other car wash, which is, we call a standalone. That's your typical, we have a Quick Quack, we have the Fast 5 Express, where you can stack 15, 16 cars, and it goes through a tunnel, and you exit, you have washing facilities and cleaning vacuums of things of those nature. So this inventory is a summary of those two that exist in the city. So just to begin, this is kind of a big slide, but this kind of highlights to you just big picture, and we'll go into different sections because this is a pretty large area. But just a quick overview, there's, in terms of gas station with a car wash, there's 8 existing in the city. There's 2 in construction or in plan check, and there are 5 that are approved or in process already. In terms of standalone car washes, there's 6 existing, and there's 1 that's approved or in process. And then I'll kind of go into a little more detail. So we kind of separated it out so we can see it more closely. We call the northern area of town between Ramona and the northern city boundary. And so as you can see on this map, there's the Beyond Market that you approved a while back at the northeast corner of Paris and Harley Knox Boulevard. They're currently in plan check right now, and so hopefully they will start construction too soon. As you kind of navigate to the west side of this map, there is a gas station, car wash facility that's in planning entitlement. That's number one. And then you move slowly to the east of the site. There's a Chevron with a car wash at Ramona and Webster. As you move further, you have the Cali Express, which just recently completed construction with a car wash, and then you have your Shell and your Circle K at that corner. They all have car washes. And kind of the color coding, you can kind of tell just real quickly, the circle represents the gas station with the car wash. The star shape represents the standalone car wash. Moving to kind of the central area of town between Ramona and Nuevo, you have the 7-Eleven that's in plan check right now, that's approved. That's at Ryder and Paris. You have another gas station with a car wash, approximately at Placentia and Paris, that's in process right now. And then you have another one in that general vicinity. And then as you move further down, you can see the Quick Quack, the U-Wash, which is kind of like the hand wash facility. You have the Tommy's Car Wash, which we recently approved. And you have the Paris Wash, which is kind of the drive the car wash, but they have a personal element because you actually have people who dry your car for you. And as you move further south towards Nuevo Road, you have the Fast 5 Express, and you have the Mobile with the drive-through, and then you have the Beyond Market at Nuevo and Marietta, which is currently finalizing construction at this point. And as you head south, you don't have as many as the central area of town, which is they typically like to be located near residential areas. You have the Circle K, which you approved a while back, maybe about a year ago. And that was a car wash which was along Navajo and Nuevo and 4th Street. And then you have the Sinclair, which is doing a renovation right now. And then you have the Shell and Chevron on Redlands and San Jacinto Avenue. And as you navigate to the very southern end of town, because they want to be near a residential area, you have the Quick Quack that was approved a couple years ago. And that's the standalone car wash. And then you have the Shell at Trumbull and Ethonac. And then you have proposed, just for your knowledge, a gas station that's being proposed at Ethonac and Trumbull at the northeast corner. So that's the basic inventory. Just want to give you the lay of the land, what's happening that's out there. With that said, just staff recommends that the Planning Commission consider and discuss what was presented and just provide any feedback to staff in terms of what you think you see or any recommendations. In terms of land use, anytime there's a commercial zone, a developer has a right to apply for it, and our goal is just to make them as attractive as possible and try to alleviate issues with circulation. And with that said, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much, Director. And of course, we can, whoever wants to start, let's put that.
This is Commissioner Lopez. I think there's one for the marijuana dispensaries, but is it possible to do a moratorium for car washes or specific businesses like that?
It's always possible to do a moratorium. It has to generally has to come in a direction from the council for a moratorium.
Oh, okay. But there's no limit. It could be for any type of business.
Yes, but you usually have to have a reason or just typically a health and safety issue.
Of course. And my other question is there any studies on like how busy these car washes are?
Currently, there's not one.
No?
We just analyze them per site, and we do it depending on the situation. If we think that there's an issue, then we'll ask for a traffic study.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I personally want to say thank you for the presentation, Commissioner Gomez. Before you beat me to it. Yeah, it's very interesting to see the lesser amount of developments that we have out there in the city, the more it's very noticeable when something new is coming in. And then you see it again and again. So when these car washes started popping up right after another, it was kind of like, so whoa, what's going on? How can we have so many car washes? And I think this is a very good example of just making a very direct presentation of what we have. And as you pointed out, Kenneth, for those who are listening, they can submit their application, and what we can do is just make sure that it's a pleasing, aesthetically pleasing for the city residents. And there's obviously use for it, because they did tell us that I believe the last time that we approved Tommy's, we were told that it, or I think you told us that it was for every 30,000, is it Tommy's, residents that, you know, it's that these car washes are needed. So, but I really appreciate it. And I do see that they're mostly on like very busy streets. And it actually makes sense, because Ms. Ogawa was just telling us how they're attracted to the areas where there's these big commercial centers, and that's where you see the concentration of these as well. So thank you so much for listening to our request and bringing this to us today. Appreciate it.
Has the council asked any questions or been presented this? Can I ask that?
Commissioner.
Commissioner Jimenez, sorry.
Okay.
Oh my
That's
gosh. I'm not sure if it's my question or I forgot my name.
She'll get it down.
Has the council asked for this information? Has this been presented to them? I guess from a planning commissioner approach, my concern is, you know, we have limited commercial space, and it's health and safety. Are there any health or safety concerns that you have found that are associated with these car washes or having so many?
I'm not aware of any major issues with car washes, other than some cities, including ours, where they've expressed concerns, particularly at the Planning Commission. There was also a request of the council to provide data, so this was provided a while back to the council. That information has been provided to them, at least, I think, if I recall correct, 6 months to a year ago. We had no further feedback to pursue anything further. And we make decisions.
Based on their guidance.
Yes.
But 6 months ago to a year ago, I mean, there's how many new ones that are in process or approved? There's 6 of them. Have they seen, I guess my question is, since they saw this, have we seen a huge increase in planning to develop more? Because if they were presented this information a year ago, we were looking at 10, 16 of them. We're now, with the ones that are approved or in process, we're looking at 22.
So I would say that you can kind of see it in the red, so which is the approved or in process. So pretty much half of those are already entitled. And so, for example, if you can see the screen, I can show you like the number 2 has been approved. The number 4 has been approved. The number 1 has been approved. So pretty much half of those have already been approved. So since the last presentation, there's 3 additional.
So since the last presentation to the council, there was only 3 new ones.
3 new ones, yes.
Okay.
The last data that was provided, I don't think I made a presentation. I think I just gave them the data.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish they would have seen this, because then you can see the concentration, you can see the type, you could see all the details that we're able to see. Okay. So there aren't any health concerns or safety concerns, right, that you have brought up, other than the Planning Commission saying, you know, sometimes they do lend themselves for people who are unhoused or.
Yeah, we haven't experienced that in Paris.
Okay.
I mean, if we get direction to go do the research, and we'll take those steps.
From the council. Okay. That's it for now. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't, I think it's important to keep a number because it's probably going to increase. Not to get into detail, but you have one on the by Valverde School. I don't remember that one. Off Ramon Expressway. Yeah.
Can you say that?
No, but it's right there by the freeway. There's a gas station? That's the gas station? Okay.
Oh, let me
okay.
let me
I
zoom
know there's
closer.
one by that Chevron.
Yeah, I think this map, for some reason, it showed Valverde there, but I think it's the map that shows it. It's the Valverde's
Okay, I'm about to
further
say,
south.
school
It's-
district.
Yes, just a map that's generated for some reason. It shows it there.
Okay. Well, if there's no further questions, I guess we will do the same thing, just be procedurally. Thank you very much, Director.
Thank you.
And we'll probably have more of them, so. I think the only issue to me would be the use of water. It's recycled water, we understand that, but that would be something to look into if that has any impact at all. I don't care if it's Riverside, I don't care if it's Marina Valley. The water usage, again, because they reuse water, that's a lot of water if you have 22 car washes. So in a drought state, what impact does that necessarily have? That's maybe the only question that might come up, as opposed to, it's an economically driven thing, so I don't have a problem if that's what they want to do, like fast food. We're trying to get moratorium in LA on liquor stores. Good luck with that one. Okay, and then the community said drop dead. The community said it. So it's kind of one of those things where you don't want to get into that. But the idea is that if there's water usage, then it becomes an issue of water. How much water do they use? And there's an overabundance in a time of drought. Because we know that goes to the golf. We don't have golf courses, but it goes for landscaping, things like that. But there's an excessive amount of water. So that would be the only question. You said you want receive and file. What about water usage? In comparison to the e-commerce, in the comparison to the retail big box, in comparison to residential, which is obvious. You know, we expect residential, but that's drinking water, and then that's also. But this is all recyclable. So I guess, is there an impact? If not, that would be the only question. And that, if you have 22, maybe 25, maybe hopefully not 30. But that would be the question, Kenneth. I'm basically doing the city, I'm working as a city employee now, right? It's water. Is there an issue with water, an engineering issue? Where are they drawing this water from? We're in a drought. So even EMWD says that, and I want to get a desalinization. What are you talking about? But I understand what they're saying. You have desalinated water. I don't want to get into that, but it has to be coming from somewhere. So that would be the issue. And that's the only issue for me. And not even an issue, just that would be a discussion point if you're going to have an impact. We won't talk about aesthetics. We're not talking. But obviously they're going to concentrate on Paris Boulevard. That's where the people are. Okay, and you want to put it in certain places. But that's it. I think that's it. Okay, so once again, was there any public comment from IT people on the car wash?
If you're asking about public comment, there is none, sir.
Okay, thank you. Unless Michelle and them have some public. Okay, that closes the public comment portion, not a hearing, but I think you've got enough information. I appreciate it. Very good, Kenneth. How are we doing down there, guys, in terms of saying the names? We're trying. Okay. Okay. We go to item C. I know we're all waiting on that one. Okay. Industrial, and I'm going to say the word industrial good neighbor policy resolution 22-19-A. A resolution, this we do have to vote, a resolution to consider implementation of good neighbor guidelines for sitting new modified warehouse distribution facilities, aimed at minimizing environmental impacts associated with warehouse distribution facilities in proximity to sensitive receptors in the city of Paris. The applicant is the city of Paris. Requested action, adopt resolution number 22-19, recommending the city council adopt the good neighbor guidelines for sitting new modified warehouse distribution facilities, and determine the resolution is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines, CEQA, pursuant to sections 15060C3 and 15061B3. As this resolution will not result in a direct or reasonably foreseeable indirect physical change in the environment, nor will it have a significant effect upon the environment. And we open it up to our planning manager, Patricia Rennes. Welcome again.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Communications, if we can have my presentation up, please. Thank you. By way of background, as we all know, the Inland Empire has been experiencing a tremendous growth in industrial development. And for this very reason, back in 2005, WRCOG and the Regional Air Quality Task Force developed the Good Neighbor Guidelines for siting new and or modified warehouse distribution facilities. Early this year, the City Council directed staff to prepare Good Neighbor Guidelines for the City of Paris. So here we are. Staff researched WRCOG Good Neighbor Guidelines and also survey nearby jurisdictions, including County of Riverside, City of Riverside, City of Moreno Valley, City of Menifee, and City of Fontana. Staff grouped all of the policies adopted by other jurisdictions, and they were grouped into different categories to better assess how they would fit the City of Paris. The guidelines that have been developed and are before you today are a modified version of the WRCOG's guidelines, combined with policies from the survey jurisdictions. They're also consistent with policies that have been adopted by environmental agencies from the state. And in addition to that, the policies presented today to you include newly created goals and policies that go above and beyond the ones that have already been adopted by nearby jurisdictions. In summary, the Good Neighbor Guidelines consist of 7 goals that will benefit the neighborhood character, engine emissions reductions, eliminations of trucks in our residential neighborhoods, buffers between warehouses and sensitive receptors, educational training, public outreach, and community engagement, best construction practice, and compliance with the state environmental guidelines or requirements. The goals will be implemented by the proposed policies, the majority of which have been adopted by other agencies, and some are newly created by staff, as I previously mentioned. So the newly created policies include the Silver LEED certification, solar panels for 100% coverage for the office area of warehouses, truck routing plan to be consistent with the city's truck route plan, landscape setbacks, a minimum of 30 feet of landscape setback along property lines when adjacent to sensitive receptors, trees specifications, percentage of landscaping to be increased by 2% of what we are used to seeing in the general industrial zone and the light industrial zone, screening of loading areas. This is something that we are already doing, but it's not done citywide. So you're used to seeing the 14-foot high decorative block walls, the berming to soften the views of the wall from the public right-of-way, building architecture details to ensure that the architecture of the building is articulated, modulated, and includes 2 or more materials. Notification to provide adequate notification to property owners, or at least 25 property owners, whichever is greater. And monthly construction report where the applicant is required to provide reports to the city demonstrating that they comply with all the construction-related policies. This diagram illustrates some of the policies that, when combined, will reduce all of the potential, or most of the potential impacts from warehouse facilities. So this illustrates the 300-foot setback that's recommended in in the policies that's presented to you today. It includes the 30-foot planter setback. We placed a 14-foot block wall behind the setback, but in reality, it could be within the setback. The height of trees to be a minimum of 25 feet in height, and the 6-foot high wall adjacent to the residence. So as you can see with the policies that we're recommending, the impacts will be lessened tremendously when warehouses are going to be in close proximity to sensory receptors, in this case, residential use. When adopted, the Good Neighbor Guidelines would apply to all new warehouse, logistics, distribution facilities, excluding the applications that have been formally submitted prior to the effective day of this policy. The Good Neighbor Guidelines will supplement the zoning code and the specific plans, and the approving authority will have the discretion and authority to approve projects that deviate from the guidelines, provided adequate justifications are provided by the applicant. Before I conclude, I would like to make 2 minor clarifications in our policies. On page 3, Goal 1, Policy 1, we would like to revise that policy to read any industrial project over 400,000. Right now, it only reads projects that are 400,000, so anything over 400,000. And page 5, Goal number 2, Policy 1, letter E, revised to read on-site equipment such as forklifts shall be electric with the necessary electrical charging station or other alternate clean technology provided, because we don't know what the technology is going to be in the future. And one last thing before I conclude, staff received correspondence regarding this project requiring clarification on whether or not LEED certification is required, or if it's just projects need to be designed to meet LEED standards. So the clarification was provided to indicate that silver LEED certification would be required. And with that, staff would recommend adoption of resolution number 22-19, recommending that the City Council adopt the Good Neighbor Guidelines for siting new modified warehouse distribution facilities, and determine the resolution is exempt from CEQA, subject to sections 15060C3 and 15061B3, as this resolution will not result in direct or reasonably foreseeable indirect physical change in the environment. And that concludes staff presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Hello, Patricia. I just want to add one more edit, if you don't mind, for goal number 2, number 18. If there's a reference to urbanist. There's a further update from the traffic analysis standpoint. It's Cal EMOD. So we just want to just make that, if we can note that change.
Thank you, Kenneth.
218,
Yeah, go to 18.
where it says in compliance with CEQA?
Yes, conduct SCAB Cal
Yeah.
EMOD, because that's the latest technology.
Cal,
EMOD,
Cal Iman.
yeah.
Never heard of it. Okay, thanks. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. First time, right?
Yes. Be nice.
I'm not going to go on the record for that one.
We would like her to be back.
Yes,
We-
okay. Remind me, thank you. All right, who would like to be first, if they would like to be first, because I've got a few.
I can go first, Commissioner Gomez. Thank you for the presentation today. This is all very good information. I just wanted to focus on, I believe it was goal number 2 regarding the solar panels.
Yes.
It's required that anything over 400,000 square feet have solar panels, unless it's restricted by the air base, so that it can be 100% self-sustainable. Is that correct?
It's intended to be only for the office area,
For just the
100%
office
for the
area.
office area,
Oh, okay.
unless it's restricted by the airport plan.
Okay, well, I'm glad I asked, because I thought it was for the entire building to, to sustain itself. I was like, that's awesome. So it's for the office space area according to however that is built. So if there's like a mezzanine and there's 2 office spaces, then it has to be able to cover for both. Okay.
Correct.
Another, thank you for that clarification. Another question I had was for the 14-foot, I forgot what the name of that is, the wall. You gave it a really nice name. What was it? What's the name of it again? Hold on. The buffer. So it's a buffer wall, correct?
Yes.
So, it's 30 feet setback for the wall. But then I heard, and yes, but then I heard that 14-foot wall can be within the 30-foot setback.
It could be either or, just because depending on the situation, like if you're along the right of way, you want it 14 feet back. You want 30 feet back so you can have the landscaping buffer along the street right of way. But in some instances where you're like adjacent to a residential property, there's very few probably exist in that situation. It might be better to have that wall at the property line than the 30-foot landscape on the opposite side and have the trees grow up, and that might be a better solution. So it's just,
Okay, so it's circumstantial.
yeah, it's just based on the circumstance.
Okay, all right, because when I heard that, I felt like we were going to give them too much of an opportunity to say, well, we want the wall, within the 30-foot setback, but it's only if there's like a residential property or a property nearby where it's too close to the building, or
So if
It
I can
makes
just
more sense.
clarify, the policies that are being recommended
yes,
are for in situations where the warehouses are in close proximity to sensitive receptors. This example shows a residence.
okay,
So if the warehouse is not adjacent to a sensitive receptors, then it wouldn't be subject to the 300-foot separation or the 30-foot setback. It would be subject to the development standards required in the zoning code or the specific plan.
can we modify that recommendation?
Well, the Good Neighbor Guidelines is for siting warehouses in close proximity to sensitive receptors.
This is a good opportunity for us to set a setback that will make our city look much nicer, especially because we still have plenty of potential industrial zone left. So I'm not sure how much leeway the developer will have with that. But the further back possible that we can keep that wall, whether it's a sensitive, what was that word again?
Receptor.
Or not, I'd like staff to consider that and have a conversation about that, because I'm not sure what the developers want. I know that your department does, and I would leave that to your recommendation, but I really feel that this is a good opportunity, since we're putting this policy in place, recommending that City Council approve it, that we take that opportunity to have these offsetters, which is the trees and the greenery in the area, to make our city more pleasant and have more air and pathways, walkways that are not just, that are actual, they're parkways, or am I using the right term? But, where there's landscape on both sides of the sidewalk, instead of just having the sidewalk. I was driving, I go on Ryder, and I'm driving next to the warehouse that's being built right now, and it doesn't feel that there's enough setback. I know we agreed to it and we approved it, but when you drive by it, and then that 14-foot wall is there, and it reminds you there's a warehouse there, and then so I realized it doesn't feel like there's much of a setback and the street itself is not wide enough to give you, it's just like a tower. So having that in mind, I really like the idea of the 30-foot setback to be as a guideline for, unless there's a very other reason that would impede, like, to a great, really cost, or, I mean, not, be, how can I put it? Something that's, a circumstance that really needs it, that needs to be less than 30 feet, I think that we should stick to 30 feet. And especially when it's along the main street, where there's going to be the entrances and the exits.
We can certainly add it as a policy item for council consideration.
Yes, please.
I think you bring some good valid points.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think that was for me. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I think we can probably adjust the wording. This is found 30 feet or greater, and then that gives us the flexibility.
That sounds wonderful. See, Kenneth knows us already. You want to go for 50? No, I'm kidding. But you understand, like I said earlier, it's just driving by it. I mean, I know that it's going to be really nice, and that construction itself, we understand the developers have worked with the city so much, and they always, everything we recommend, they're like, we'll do it, we'll do it, we'll do it. They're so open. But when I saw it, it made it just like a reality check to me. And then seeing the trucks pass by, oh boy, that's going to be different too. So, yeah, definitely.
Commissioner Gomez, just for clarification, so you're recommending this policy not only to apply when adjacent or in close proximity to residences, but in all circumstances, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Lopez, I said it for you.
Thank you. So my question is, what classifies an area as a sensitive receptor?
It's your single-family home, a hospital, convalescent home, a park, a school.
Is there like a specific guideline for it? Is it anything that's not zone light industrial, or? Because I feel like it's very vague.
Are you I'm just trying to, are you referring to like defining a distance from the?
No, defining what is
Defining,
receptor.
maybe we just need to add a definition of sensitive receptors in our good neighbor guidelines.
Please.
Thank you.
Another question is, one of the policies that we're adopting is policy number 1. I just want a clarification why the city prefers a 300-foot setback versus 1,000 feet. Policy number 1.
Number 5.
That is a policy that was adopted by the County of Riverside. So when we were developing the policies for the City of Paris, we surveyed the nearby jurisdictions, and we listed all of the policies and categorized them, and we felt that the setback requirement that was established for the Good Neighbor Guidelines in the County of Riverside would be practical and appropriate versus the 1,000-foot setback. Also because CEQA already provides that environmental, I don't want to say restriction, but checks and to check to see whether or not air quality is going to have an impact on single-family homes, traffic. So given the fact that one of the jurisdictions has already implemented this guideline, we felt that it would be appropriate also for the City of Paris.
Got you. I have another question with policy number 108. It states that the applicant will submit their own, during construction, their own report versus having a land management agency conduct the inspection. Why do we prefer having the applicant do it versus an agency?
By requesting a monthly report, it would avoid the staff having to go out for inspections and minimize the time. If we see it in the report that there's something that needs to be looked at, then staff would go out to the site. It was just trying to be more efficient when we recommended the monthly report as opposed to having an inspector go out there.
So it's a fiscal issue?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, it's all right, thank you.
Really quick, piggybacking off of that question, right now as it stands, is it also monthly for an inspector to go out to the development once a month? Or how often do they go out?
They pretty much go out every day for the check, for just like inspections. But I think this is related to Patricia, I think this is more particularly related to certain air quality issues, and we don't necessarily have the expertise in that. And so we would just ask them to hire a third party to do the monitoring for us.
Right. There are a number of policies in the guidelines that are being recommended that deal with construction. And so having the applicant provide that monthly report will alleviate having to spend the time to go out there and that was the whole reason for it, because of the construction policies that are included in the document.
Okay.
It's not related to the projects that are going on right now. When projects are under construction, the inspectors go out there regularly as needed or as requested by the applicant to conduct the inspection. But
So
in
that they
this
can move
case-
forward.
In this case, this is above and beyond that. It's to also ask
This
for
is
a
an
monthly
addition.
report. Yes.
I see. So this is an addition, and it can, the agency that they acquire or that they provide, Commissioner Gomez, can it be an agency that is approved by the City of Paris? Is that how it's going to work, or is it an agency that's approved by the state? How does that work?
Yeah, it would probably be approved by us.
Okay.
They would have to submit something that we know would be an independent party.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Shively? Yeah. Go for it.
So, looking at
Is Commissioner Shively. Vice Chair.
Looking at the first goal is to actually, it should be LEED Silver certification instead of Silver LEED certification. For a minimum, for each project that is 400,000 square feet in size, is that one building, or can that be 6 buildings? Can that be 400,000 square feet in its entirety for spread between 12 buildings?
Good question.
I think the first would be, I mean, we can make it flexible, but I think our initial thought is just buildings that are 400,000 square feet or greater.
One
But-
building.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if they have, and most of our buildings, if they're large, are greater than 400,000.
Yeah. Unfortunately, absolutely.
But this is where you have, you can provide us feedback if it's cumulative or just individual.
I believe it should be cumulative
Okay.
on this, but there is another issue with obtaining LEED certification in itself. LEED certification requires some very specific requirements in the very general category of locations of, you gotta, it's been a while since I've reviewed the LEED certification stuff, but it's been, you gotta be within at least 10 groups such as churches, parks, transportation, bus routes, schools, all those functions, you gotta have at least 10 of them in a broad category of stuff within, I don't know, it's not very much, a quarter mile or something like that. So obtaining LEED certification may not be easily obtainable for a warehouse because of where it sits. However, I think maybe it needs to say obtain a minimum qualification for LEED certification, maybe. So, and there's lead silver and lead silver, lead gold, lead platinum. So, and in my view, with the California Building Code itself, you can nearly obtain lead silver just in the California Building Code itself. So if it's something that we're trying to qualify as a minimum standard, it should be a higher standard than just lead silver, minus all the effects of what the qualifications of obtaining the lead certification plaque. Or are you actually looking for them to achieve and actually get the lead silver plaque so they can mount it on the wall?
I think we're trying to achieve the certification and not just having the applicant or the developer design to meet the standards, but those are great points that you bring up. So would it be maybe a good idea to add when feasible, given the location of the site?
There's lead certification, there's green globes, I think there's one or two other certificates that are out there that have several qualifications for it, but are not as site restrictive on for amenities around the site that's out there. So I think it needs to be at least a minimum standard for a qualification of lead certification. Because the building code itself, just by following the minimum mechanical code requires, electrical code requirements, you almost qualify for that, just in the code.
Okay.
So that was one item I did have.
Thank you.
I wrote down a couple of other ones here. Looking at the landscaping, you're requesting that it's 25-foot trees. Are those trees installed 25 feet during construction or at mature growth?
At construction.
At construction.
Yes, we're just trying to find situations where if
Can
they're
you get-
adjacent to a residential area, that area that's adjacent to the residential needs to have full specimen-sized trees. So that's what we're suggesting.
Can you get 25, what size box tree is a 25-foot? You can, it's just extraordinarily expensive.
It will be expensive, but if you want to build next to a residential area, that buffer.
So the intention of this also is to not just neighboring cities, it's neighboring communities as well.
No, it's adjacent warehouses in close proximity to sensitive receptors.
Okay, so it's, for the neighborhood policy is internal as well as external as well.
We want the warehouses to be good neighbors.
Yes, okay.
Just for clarification, this is Commissioner Gomez. What are the surrounding cities? What's their limit for trees right now? Do you know? Was it similar? I'm just curious. Because if
Riverside, Marina Valley, Menifee,
What do they require?
it's on there,
they have the requirements.
those are their requirements as well?
25 foot?
25, yeah.
I believe
The
we're at the
20
most.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, we're the most. We're trying to be adopt every policy that the jurisdiction we surveyed. Plus, we're adding a few others we feel is appropriate. So
Yes.
this is above and beyond what other people are doing, especially in light of the fact that we have less industrial land available.
Yes,
So this would be a policy that we are recommending,
Yes.
the height of the trees to be 25 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Other jurisdictions require 36-inch box trees for a percentage of the trees within the setbacks.
I like the idea of the height instead of the box size, because I've seen big boxes with little trees in them.
Yeah.
Haven't we? We've seen it. We've seen it. So I really appreciate that staff took time to listen to what the planning commission's been asking for and wording it the way that we are happy with. So it's refreshing. Thank you.
And planted 20 feet on center, so they're not going to be miles away.
Very good.
So,
Mr. Shipley?
continuing. So you were asked, you
Pass that now.
also requesting for a minimum of 2 materials on the building?
I'm sorry.
A minimum of 2 materials on the building? That could be stucco and glass?
No, in addition to stucco. It has to be 2 decorative materials.
Okay. Does the state decorative
So
materials?
we can add that clarification.
4, I think. No, 3. I should have wrote it down. Sorry, I didn't write that part down.
Which goal was that under?
I don't know, I just
It
made it
is goal number 4, and it is recommended policy number 6 on page 7.
up. Is it decorative materials? There it is, okay. So this, if I may just read what I have, it says that the architecture of the building shall include at least 2 materials, e.g. stone, brick, metal siding, etc., and consist of variation of planes and forms, varied roof lines, pop-outs, recessed features, and are intended to result in interior and exterior areas that can be used by the general public, visitors, and employees. So it doesn't absolutely, I mean, other than stating stone, brick, metal, exciting, it doesn't say decorative. Maybe it should say at least 2 decorative materials. Is yours say different?
Yeah, but it doesn't say decorative. In addition. Or in addition to, or to decorative.
We'll add the clarification if you're
Yes.
comfortable with that.
Or
Just that,
just use the word Taj Mahal. And then down on goal number 5, the notification for 300 feet or 25 owners, whichever there is greater.
We
300
were-
feet could be a small area if you're dealing with a warehouse area. And then 25 can be such a small number as well. Perhaps there could be some delineation between the adjacent spaces. If it's residential areas, it needs to be a specific distance from the property lines that includes 400 feet of people. But if it's in a light industrial area already that you don't have a lot of adjacent property owners, maybe it does need to be 25 or 30 adjacent property owners within whatever circumference from the property. It doesn't, it's I don't think it's enough people being notified.
Okay, we could explore that. Our thinking behind that is because sometimes industrial, when they're next to residential, there could be big lots. And
Yep.
so the thinking behind that is, in some cases, you might only have 10 property owners within 300 feet. If we made it at least 25, it will broaden that, but we could say 500 feet or 25.
Maybe that's,
550?
But if you got 500, if it's a smaller group, I mean, maybe it just needs to be more, maybe it is a larger distance that just gets notified.
Yeah, okay. Our goal was, we were trying to just expand that in situations that way that occur. So maybe 500, is that
What is it currently?
300 feet?
300.
So we're not increasing the distance, we're just adding the minimum of 25 people.
Yeah, basically what I'm saying, I think what you're suggesting is to maybe increase it from 300 to 500 and still to add to 25, just to make sure we're notifying enough people.
Right.
If that's sufficient.
Yeah, in my eyes it is. Increase it to 500 feet and maybe 50 people or what?
I'm okay with that.
500 feet or 50 properties?
Yeah.
This is Chairman Hammond. I would see the caveat, because of a government employee, where feasible. Because if you have a property that does not do that, you're going to kill that developer. So we're always going to be government safety things when you say government. Where feasible. It might be 500, but then you have a small lot and you can't do it. That guy's up a creek. So when it's feasible legally, if feasible, 300 feet is the standard, but it may have to be 500, it could be 500, can't be less than. You can say not less than, that may be your minimum standard, but you got, and I'm not disagreeing, I'm just saying, it depends on the property. It depends on the property. So you have some large open space where 500 feet is nothing, but then you have a smaller, the 300, you're gonna tell them, you have to see where it's feasible, and that leaves it to staff to determine. And so we set a minimum standard,
Well, I mean,
at least a minimum standard of 300. But I'm just saying you may have a property that, like Redlands, where it's right there. And if you're saying 500, then that's going to infringe on the size of the building. So the building would have to be reduced if you don't have that property square footage. So it all depends on the property square footage, the acreage. So if you have enough, you understand what I'm saying? If you have a residential and abutting something, you have to have enough space to meet that 500-foot dimension. Otherwise, you're in the parish channel or you're something like that, and you have the MHSCP, you have all the other stuff. If you have 5 buildings in there,
if you say 500 feet, you're basically saying 5 residential properties because they're mostly 100 feet deep, plus the street. So you're maybe getting nearly the community that's most affected by it, not just the adjacent lot owner, or the residential owner. You're going to three streets out potentially to get your 500 contacts, or to get your contacts within that 500 feet. So
yeah, it's something.
And
to-
it's only around sensitive receptors. It's not
Right.
for all developments. Sorry, Commissioner Jimenez.
I
But
didn't-
this only applies to the ones that are around sensitive receptors. So if you are butting against another warehouse, then this does not apply, right? This is only when you're butting against a sensitive receptor.
but that your adjacent warehouse is one adjacent owner.
So for clarification, are we okay with saying property owners within 300 feet, or when needed, 500 feet, or at least 50 properties, whichever is greater?
Well, when you say
Right, you're giving them a choice at that point.
So
Oh,
if you leave it open for one or the other, you give it the option to take the smaller of the amount.
No, it states whichever is greater.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one or the other, but you have to pick whichever is greater.
But at this point,
But if we're talking about a circumference of area,
Yeah.
if you're saying it's only 300 feet, but if it's this, then whoever's interpretation wants to say, oh, yeah, you just do 300 feet instead of 500 feet. It's where you say, I understand that where you say where feasible, I agree where it says, let's just set the boundary to say 500 feet is the goal, but if the parcels are 50-foot deep lots, then that's not as feasible, then you can do 300 feet. Right, it's somewhat into, it's definitely opened up into the interpretation of what the verbiage is, how the verbiage is read versus what notifying a community that is directly being affected of it, because you have, 100 trucks driving to this warehouse a day versus, the adjacent property owner, or the two adjacent property owners that are greatly affected by it more because they're next to the warehouse versus one that's two down the street.
I agree. And, this doesn't clarify if it's from boundary lines or where 500, it says around, but it doesn't really specify. It doesn't say if it's like from the end of the building or if it's from their property lines. I would like to see if we could add that clarification on there directly.
Yeah, I think it says property.
Yeah, that's why it's the property line, not the building.
Okay,
We'll add that.
we work with that, okay.
Okay, I just wanted to add, because you're also leaving it up to,
You know who she is right now, right?
oh, yes, Commissioner Gomez.
She's probably got it down by now.
We're leaving it up to the developer to say, this is the building I want to build, and then, they can extend their building, because it either they're like, well, it's not feasible for my building because my building's this big, but then we set the boundary. We're like, well, your building can only be this big if you're gonna develop on that property. So I think that's what we're trying to get at, right?
Okay, this is Chairman Hammond, and I'm piggybacking what she said when he says, this is a possible one. If you set a standard of 500 feet and they want to do 300, then you have to get a variance. So variances do solve the problem. That's being in 20 years. Variances, we're going to take a variance from the height. The height, you're saying 14 feet. We're not going to budge on that one, but if you're saying there's going to be a change, then it would be a variance, and you have to come back and say to this commission, that is 300. That's the only way you do it legally. If you say variance, like you have fence variances, you have other variances, we're going to change this portion. We're going to change from the 500-foot barrier because it's not feasible. Then you say it's 400. Or parking, we want 8,000 spaces, we only want 7,000. You get a variance, right? So that's just one possible solution. I mean, if you want it in writing, I'm talking from the developer standpoint. If you're gonna, this is a guideline, and if you're gonna say a guideline for new development, not the ones entitled already. So that's another thing to consider. This is just new, and there's not a whole lot of new, in certain areas. But if you're gonna set a guideline for new only, then, then you don't wanna be so far apart from the other ones where it's way over the top requirements for these, and the other ones are getting by with, so you gotta be careful there too. But I think that's a potential solution is a variance if they want to go, if you want 500 as a commission, that's fine. But if they want to have a variance, well, we only have a 300-foot or 400-foot for a lot of reasons. EMW setback, blah, blah, blah. Isn't that possible? I'm just saying it's a possibility. I'm not saying that's the answer. But that word tends to come into us a lot anyway. I don't want 400 spaces, we need 300 because we can't do such and such. We have to prove the variance.
So I don't know if that really qualifies for them to come back and say, we're submitting this for you guys because it's a potential variance when it still affects the whole first community of 500 feet setback, so 500 feet from the property line. Maybe, so we're making a judgment, say, you want a variance, but before you make that judgment of notifications, we need to come to the city or the city planning to determine if you can have that variance where you're first cutting off those people potentially outside that variance right off the bat.
Yeah, that's always the case. If it becomes variance, we still have to prove it. So either way, that's going to happen anyway. They're going to come back and want to make changes, and then you decide whether you want to approve the change. You can say no. You have to do it based on these are guidelines. So based on the guide, I'm just telling you guys what's going to happen. If you have guidelines, you say it's 500, and then practically speaking from staff, that configuration, it's this kind of thing, we only get 400 spaces, we can only do, you can decide, no, you've got to stick with that, then they may have to reduce the size of the building, they may have to reduce the size of the other things they do. That's what variances do for you. It allow you the wiggle room as a quasi-judicial to say, okay, we set the standard, now why do you want to go away from the standard? Now they have to prove to you why they want to go away from the standard.
Yeah, I don't think we're sitting there saying they got to reduce the size of their building.
No, I'm just
based off
saying
the
they may
property.
want to do that because when they actually do the configuration on paper, they may have to do that.
Well, no, if we're going for property line, their
Yeah.
building size really doesn't affect anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah,
I think you're right. If we say 500, they'll come back with a variance and it'll be 400. If we do a 300 variance, they'll come back with 150.
Yeah.
So I think if we have a higher
You
standard,
have
the
a higher
variance will
standard.
be less.
yeah.
And it doesn't have to be exactly 500, maybe it is 400 or whatever else, but you just got to set, I think we need to set a higher quality of notifications. Because there's more people that are affected by a warehouse that drive past a warehouse every day or get stuck in traffic because they're driving along the truck route every day, sitting behind the trucks, than just the property owners that are adjacent to the directly adjacent to the property. So I'm just suggesting that it needs to be a little bit broader circumference around the property.
And we're talking about adjacent, so I just thought about something. We don't have specifications if it's across the street and there's a house there. This is only when it's directly backed
Directly
into one of
adjacent.
these. So we're not thinking about building across the street from a school or across the street from a park. And I think that maybe needs to be included too. If there is a sensitive receptor within 500 feet or whatever amount from the perimeters, because, they're gonna say, I'm not adjacent to a school, I'm across the street. I'm not adjacent to that park, they're across the street and one property over. So it's not just adjacent. I think maybe we need to look at that wording too, where it's within, we have to be very specific.
I agree. This is Commissioner Gomez. I agree because we've had those conversations in here before. So unfortunately, we have been put in a position where they're like, well, it's not specific, and we're doing what is on paper, and so, yes, I agree.
Yeah. Whatever number that you guys feel comfortable with, 400, doesn't matter, but at least, those are some ideas. I'm not saying I have to, I'm just saying,
Okay,
that's one concept.
Okay, I think I get the concept, so my suggestion is gonna be, we'll add that in the definition section, closely sensitive receptor, and in that definition, we'll say, let's say, within 500 feet the fence, so that way we can clearly define that it's not necessarily adjacent, but it's
Yeah,
across the street too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I like some of the things that were, you have to specify adjacent, like the Jimenez, I'm sorry, the 25-foot tree and those kinds of things. But as far as input, I think we need to just not focus on the word adjacent and just, you were right, within the vicinity. Sorry.
And this is Chairman Hammond. I think I agree with Commissioner Lopez too. We may have an idea, but sensitive receptors needs to be defined. We don't want to assume that everybody knows. Schools, childcare, hospitals, things like that, sensitive receptor, residential, multifamily, that's when you go out and do a CEQA and you do the noise, you put it at sensitive receptor, that's a house. Okay? You don't care about the warehouse's noise next to another warehouse. It's sensitive receptors are city defines.
We will add a
Yeah.
definition.
Then, when this comes up, well, it's next to, it's a sensitive receptor, why did you ignore it? It's a childcare center. Well, we defined it.
But some of those sensitive receptors, if I can go back with it, are some of the lead requirements, so it's a tough one.
Okay, I told you, 11 o'clock would be way before 11 o'clock.
Yeah, and I
I have a
some
few
too.
things, and I went through every page of this, and I promise not to drag out. Give some ideas, and I think I looked at all the different cities, and we're the most stringent, obviously. WRCOG, that's nice of them, but they're not Paris. Let me give some suggestions. There were some things in there that were kind of strange. Number one issue is enforcement. It's, code enforcement's not going to do it, and the city only has so many employees. So some of the stuff is reliable on them to do, like if you want monthly reports, having been a city administrator, I can tell you good luck with that one, okay? Let's go through a few things real quick. We talk about open facility to on-site public. I think their idea of going out, and this you'll like, going out in the community and doing that kind of search, and it's wonderful. But I think also, now remember, we're only talking about 15% left and 35, so you're putting a lot of burden on new ones. Have them come to your facility and actually look at it, okay? Stop doing the paper flyers that are gonna put in the trash. Go to the facility, look at that great Home Depot like I've done. The efficiency, the landscaping, the panels, when you see it, the public's silent. What are they doing in terms of charge of stations? I'm looking at it as a member of the public, and I don't have to have a college degree. I see what you're doing, and now I got a communication with you. So when I say noise is out there, I'm talking to John Doe, Jane Doe out there and saying, I brought you into my facility, and now you're seeing what we're talking about. That makes them have to have that dialogue. So as these developers, some of them big time, big name, they need to do that, not just prior, sending out flyers. You know what that does, right? Yeah, I'm coming to the community, and nobody responds. Get a response, even if they go to another city, get them, not all 75,000 people, okay? But those people that are going to be affected, at least make it open that they're able to do that. That would help. Open the facility to that. Having dealt with nonprofits, having dealt with public, having dealt with that, this is one of those things that's right down my alley. The more you do things in the community, the less hassle you're going to do when it goes up to the council level. Okay, so you want to avoid that. Some of the screaming we get about they're coming around here. Okay, stop talking, go out there with them. So now they know. We've had developers say, I'm going to put windows into your house. I'm going to affect some Anderson windows, double pane, I'm going to do it. Let's silence them. I didn't have to do that, but it's extra step they took to get the public out. That won them over. Never heard a thing from the public after that. I'm saying that's the answer, but the idea is taking the initial step. And we're putting on a few now. They talked about, I thought it was strange, providing food, fueling, truck repair, and all that inside the warehouse? No. No. I'm glad the city didn't go for that. Now, here's one you like. They went from 10% to 12% landscaping. Come on.
13.
12 to 14%. And I'm like, is that really a concession? We're going from 10 to 12% landscaping?
And they're gonna include those trees
Yeah.
and that 30-foot as part of that percentage.
Are you serious? I mean, let's be reasonable about that number. I mean, we want landscaping. These guys are multi-million-dollar. And if you look at Meridian Parkway, that was $1 million worth of trees. That was several $1 million worth of trees. You know what I'm talking about, right? We couldn't put it in. I know Riverside didn't do it. So all those trees along that whole, some are magnolia trees, but that's all lined up. When you put 10 to 12%, that's a real low standard. So I don't know how the commission feels, but that's awfully low. So one for light industrial, one for general, that's kind of almost a joke, guys. I mean, that's not even, and you might suggest even higher, 15% to 20%, maybe even more. That's just my, yeah, at least 15, but gosh, 10%. Yeah, I'm gonna go 2 more percent. A couple of more trees, come on. Yeah. So you'll see that, the difference when you talk about
Yes.
green effect, air quality, all the other stuff, and you go 2%. Okay. I think one of the things I was confused about, I talked about 100% solar panels. Now, you just clarified would be the office space and obviously March Air Force Space, what I mention all the time about that. See, I work for Archives. The other thing is non-refrigerated versus refrigerated. Are we saying that we got 10% solar, or you have to have solar panels for only the non-refrigerated warehouses, or is it a combination of two? Wait a minute, okay? Because refrigerated, non-refrigerated, most of them are non-refrigerated, right? So if they happen to have refrigeration, are we saying they don't need that? Or are we only talking about the office space when we talk about having solar panels?
I think it's just an office space. We can take out the refrigeration and non-refrigeration section, just say
Okay.
we would do for just that.
Yes, that's really splitting hairs. Okay. Yeah. I liked a lot of the stuff in there, and I mentioned my main thing was the outreach and things like that, which we constantly talk about here. But I just think that's just taking an extra step in doing something like that, and I know it would work. Just past experience, it will. 50% of the planting evergreen broadleaf trees. Okay. I like the fact when I put palm trees up there. My gosh. And we changed the wording from 400,000 and over. Because that's the first thing I said, no. 400,000 or greater. Now, the only clarification is it per building or is that in cumulative? If we're saying cumulative as the process, no problem.
So,
Okay. Yeah.
So in addition to that, so not every evergreen broadleaf tree is specifically drought tolerant, or it needs to be on the WUCOL list for our zone, and probably should be a tree that doesn't take a lot of water.
Drought
resistant.
Okay.
Can that add suggestions of the types of trees that we're looking for to be specific with?
I think if they're in that list, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
long as there's some kind of list, it doesn't have to always be the Duke, okay? But because I have seen variances and they look so pretty, like if you bring in different colors and different tree, I like the broadleaf description, but then there's also smaller leaf and there's the magnolia is broad, but then there's other ones that are very decorative, but they provide a lot of shade, the
Elm tree.
peppercorns, stuff like that. So a guideline on that. I do have, are you done? Are you still?
ahead, go ahead.
You're still, no, it's okay. I don't want to interrupt.
I think
Go ahead.
the other thing, one of the things, and I'm talking about the things I like, 'cause I already picked on you. The idea of we didn't go with some other cities, and the idea of parking trucks in areas. That's a non-starter. I can't believe other cities wouldn't be all jumping on that. The idea, none of them jumped on it but us. I'm like, you don't want trucks parked, and while getting a permit to do it. That was the big argument about Ethernet. I'm not going to rehash that. But that's not even a starter here. I think that's why the warehouses need signs, and the warehouses need education or in there that they understand that you cannot park these trucks in those areas. And that has to be done at the warehouse level, signs, whatever, training, and you need to see those training things for these warehouses. We're only talking about the new ones, the old ones doing, but that's an important issue because you don't want them parking adjacent, because we have some developments in the south where that they could easily go parking in your neighborhood. Not gonna park mine, but those kind of things you want to make sure that we avoid that, because that's where the warehouse land is, and that's the next one's coming up. So that idea of allowing parking of trucks, we need to make that real clear for those drivers that are there that that's not going to happen. Even though my pet peeve is Ramona Expressway in front of a certain burger place. I'll go on. I won't mention. Okay. I think I'm good with everything else. I think you guys are going to have some more questions, but I think that's all I could think of. I think we were pretty thorough on most of it. And diesels going through neighborhoods. We even had problems with diesel going down D Street and C Street. Don't think I don't see that. Okay, they go them down the street constantly. There's no signs, no posting, nada. And so nothing that police are going to be able to do to them. Because they're not going to do it unless there's a sign. I used to work in park enforcement. I know they're not going to do it unless there's a sign. So I work with them. So that's one of those things where if you want to do it, you got to post the signs. You got to make sure, and the neighborhoods understand, like yours, that they can't park in the area, because they'll do it. They'll unhitch it, right? Dump it, and then they'll park their in the community. There's got to be some postings. I know we're working on that. But that's one of those things where, okay. Who has a question after me?
I just have a couple. Oh, this is Commissioner Jimenez. I did have a few
Oh.
clarifying questions. I wanted, under goal number 1, for number 4 and 5, I like the wording, but I want to know how realistic that is, because we said for large industrial uses require that driveways, loading docks, and internal circulation routes are located away from sensitive receptors. Love it. Is it feasible for every one of our locations?
I think we gave ourselves some flexibility when possible.
I don't see when possible in there.
For small industrial uses, you're talking number 4?
No, she's talking
Number
about
five.
Number
Number five.
five.
Well, both of them say that. They say, it doesn't say when possible.
I see number 4, but I don't see that for number 5.
Yeah,
It's right there.
page number 3, for large industrial uses require that
But yeah,
driveways.
the one doesn't include, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we probably need to put it when possible,
Yep.
just because.
Yeah,
it's-
because I mean, I'm all
Yeah.
for it, but like,
Yeah.
from a developer standpoint, that may not always be feasible or always be facing the street, and then the separate driveways will be a challenge. Also, for number 6, it says truck loading bays and drive aisles shall be designed to minimize truck noise. Can we be more specific and require, no, there's certain gravel, whatever that certain grade that we can use that will minimize the noise when traveling on them? Can we be a little bit more specific about what kind of different systems they can use in order to minimize truck noise? And I'm not sure if we're talking about just the tires, are we talking about the horns? Like a little bit more more specification there is what I'm trying to say. The PA system, do we have warehouses that really still use PA systems on outside, or is it just indoors? Can we be specific? I mean, I know some of them do, they'll like call and say, okay, truck blah, 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 come up to dock number. If that can be prevented and completely do it with the PA system, this day and age, everybody has a cell phone. Truck drivers have to have an iPad or some kind of device to track their logs. They can use that system of communication without necessarily having to use a PA in those sensitive receptor areas.
Yeah, we can probably add some language.
Yeah,
Yep.
whenever
about-
possible, we'll
whenever
use
possible,
alternate.
Just use alternative method than yeah.
Okay. And I think on page number 6, sorry, I was jumping around. So on page number 6, I think it was. Yes. So on page number 6, so our goal, number 2, is minimize exposure to diesel emissions to neighbors that are situated in close proximity to the warehouse distribution center. And on page number 6, number 9 just says, minimize exposure to diesel emissions for residential neighborhoods, schools, parks, playgrounds, daycare centers, nursing homes, so they specified there, situated, but it doesn't say how, and it's under that section under recommended policies, but it doesn't say a how. It's just kind of reframing our goal without providing policy direction.
We can clarify.
Okay, thank you. Then there was a couple more. I don't know if I wrote page number. There was a portion that said educating truck drivers about the risk of,
I saw that.
okay, so we just said we're gonna give them pamphlets to let them know. I think all truck drivers, or most that I've met, are aware of the health risks associated with idling in their trucks. Unfortunately, sometimes it's a necessity if they're waiting for a door for hours. So I was thinking, and I don't know how the commission feels about this, I have been to some warehouses that have a waiting area for the truck drivers while they're being loaded and unloaded that doesn't have full access to the warehouse but has a restroom in there so that they're not idling, it's air conditioned. Because if you're there for hours, you're sitting in your truck while they're loading. You kind of have to leave your truck idling in order to be safe and healthy and not dehydrate in there. I think it was number 8, number 5, 8. I think it was under goal number 5. 8 is what I was trying to tell myself. No. I have the number 5 and number 8 together. I don't know what they mean. Oh, yeah, it was goal number 5, and it's under number 5.
On page 8.
Yes, page 8, that's what I meant. Thank you. Yeah, just pamphlets. I mean, it's great if we have some, I like the wording where we have some kind of signage available for the truck drivers, but also maybe a possible area for them to, so if there's gonna be a long wait, so that they're not idling while they load and unload. I don't know how the commission feels about it.
That's
Okay.
I'm not sure how that's established, if it's established by the employer.
Well, we can say wording, you know how we have for like a certain amount of size, they need to have an indoor recreation area,
Right.
they need to have a certain amount of recreation center. So a warehouse of a certain size may have more wait time than a different size. So maybe that's something, Kenneth, I don't know,
Is there an example? I know you're more familiar with this, so is there an example that you know of?
not off the top of my head.
Okay.
This is Chairman Hammond. I think you know by now. One of the things that help in that, and this goes back to when you look at there's a lot of stuff posted in government, post stuff all the time on the wall. If you talk about pamphlets and things like that, I'm not expecting to deploy. I don't trust them. But if you have brochures and things like that about health and safety risks, let them give it to you as a city as part of condition.
Yes.
That makes it standardized. So you look at it, and now they've sent it to the city. You don't want to be overly, and say, this is what we're going to give to our employees. Whether they put it on the wall and they take pamphlets, fine. Whether they put it on the wall and say, these are some safety requirements, and this is since you're going to say these are participants, truckers want to just get in the truck and drive. But these are some of the things that are effect, so they know it's almost like a Cal OSHA thing, right?
Yes, I was.
I'm getting the Cal OSHA area, and I used to really be dogmatic about that. But trust me, I did. But the idea is now you're kind of doing preventive, and then you're saying, show me as a city, as a guideline. And we don't have to accept it or anything, but just show us as a pack. This is what you're giving to employees. That is better than having to go out there every day to see if they do it, right? You don't want to do that. So they're saying this is, and it's something that's acceptable, not just something that's standardized. They present it, and then you say, okay, you present it to your truckers. If they do, fine. If they don't, but at least you got it on record that they need to notify their employees of the particular matter in the community. Since this is kind of strange anyway. But at least you're putting it in you're kind of putting it granted. So saying that person there isn't just going to do it. Show me what you're going to be giving them, what pamphlets. There's all kinds of material about particular matter. Trust me, there is. And all the sources you guys do when you do Cal, CEQA and environment, all that other stuff, take that and say these are some potential effects. What they do with it, it's at least we as a city are saying, okay, we're going to set some guidelines. And I think that would help. So,
And if they don't want to do it, maybe we can have a sample that
Yeah,
they
that's
could
what I mean,
just
sample
print, little
package, yeah.
mini posters that they can put in.
right. So,
And, it's okay, thank you. And I think I'm almost at the end. So number 11 on page 8, under goal 4, is missing punctuation, I believe.
Yes,
Okay,
before vines.
yes.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to know what that meant. I think 11 and 12, I combined them because I think my question kind of impacts both of them, or they both impact my question. So when we were looking at the illustration where we were saying this is a 25-foot tree, this is a 300 feet, this is where the building's at, we're only measuring from the person standing on the ground. But we're saying that where they are not readily visible from sensitive receptors or major roads. Second story is visible, but then it says an additional wing wall shall be installed perpendicular to the loading dock areas to further attenuate noise related to truck activities and address aesthetics by screening the loading area. I know, Kenneth, I think we had one before where that was our concern, where you could look into the warehouse location and see the truck movement, and I forget what we recommended with that one. But if we're building next to 2-story houses or a school that's 2 stories,
I think in that particular situation, we asked for the 14-foot high wall, and then I think it was probably
yeah.
20-foot or 30-foot
Yes.
landscape, which is what we're suggesting here.
yes, okay,
That one, we didn't suggest the 20-foot tall trees, but we did suggest
We
like
s-
48-inch box, but.
shade blocking,
which,
yes, okay.
So we did, these are some of the thoughts based on some of our ad hoc meetings too. So it is,
Okay, and did we talk about, remind me, maybe I missed it, we said 25 feet on center. in order to block, but we didn't say the distance between them, I don't think.
I thought it's 20 feet on
20
center.
Yes, 20
20
feet on
feet
center.
from center?
Yeah.
From
What does that
center-
mean? 20
from-
feet between each tree?
Yes.
Yes, so from the center of the trunk to the next center of the trunk of the next tree.
Okay. And I think that was it for me. What's a wing wall?
A wing wall is a wall that comes out of perpendicular from the building wall.
Well, it does not fly just because it has wings, and ostrich has wings. I was gonna say flamingos, but flamingos fly. Yeah, so it runs perpendicular, so it's like a
Yes.
double,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
And I,
Okay, I think that was it for me. And then it also doesn't say how we're gonna inform. It says under goal number 5 on page 8, it also says we're gonna inform the community regarding strategies of warehouses, distribution facilities implementing to reduce exposure to diesel particulate. And I don't see, you know how most of them have, this is like what our benefits are, and then there's recommended policies. I don't think I saw how we were gonna do that. Well, we're gonna encourage facility owners to have site visits with neighbors. Encouraging sounds very,
That's all you can.
it gives you an out, where you're just encouraged, oh no, I tried. Yeah, I reached out.
Chairman Hammond, that's what I was adding the fact that even once they build it, that you start doing the bringing to the facility. So it's one thing to do the outward, now you bring them, and that's how you can. But beforehand, sing it out to them, saying this is coming as part of that MND, mitigated negative thing, secret process. You want to reach out. Some people respond, some don't until they come here and they stream. But the idea is them being proactive.
Yes.
I think from a legal standpoint, watching the word encourage versus mandating, you might get into a quagmire. Because enforcing it is the other part of it.
Yes.
To the employee, I'm going, let's see, I've got 50 duties, now I have 50. Yeah. I think it's going to be an honors thing, but I think if you put in writing, say that this is a requirement that you have to reach out, again, back to it. What are you reaching out with them to do? Are you sending them something or show brochures? Are you saying these are the plans? That's normally what they should do, but I think beyond encouragement, unless there's some other word we could use.
Or is it required that they, where they have to do a monthly report, do they have to have a section in there where they address how they did these things? Because then they're putting it in writing, like in my report for the month,
Yeah.
we attempted to reach this many neighbors, or we had this outreach program, just to be held accountable a little bit at a deeper level. And then also number 10, applicant should look beyond the immediate development footprint. I think maybe we could say applicant should look along with city staff. Like it needs to be supported because, again, an applicant can look and be like, yeah, there was no opportunities. I looked. But I think in conjunction with city staff to look for opportunities to enhance these things. And applicants may be required to provide a supplemental funding contribution to further offset potential air quality impacts to the community and provide a community benefit beyond any CEQA-related mitigation measures. And it says may be required, but it doesn't say when it may be required or what conditions are for it to trigger a requirement. I don't know if there's too many to list. I don't know if there's a way to change the wording just so that we're more specific, because an applicant can come back and say, well, it says it may, doesn't say it has to. So I don't know if there's too many opportunities to list. I like contracts,
You're
so.
talking about 11, Commissioner?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's talking about offsetting potential air quality impacts. So any project that is going to have potential.
But it says beyond any CEQA-related mitigation.
Right, so if a project doesn't have any air quality impacts, it would be difficult for us to say that they're required to provide supplemental funding. This provision or this policy specifically is related to projects that will have potential air quality impacts in the community. So that is the the trigger that we have to say, well, you're going to have air quality impacts. To further minimize those impacts, then we can apply.
This case, Chairman
And
Hammond.
instead of saying may, will be required, if you have to do a CEQA, you will be required to provide supplemental funding to offset instead of may be, because then it sounds, you know, if,
It has no teeth.
yeah, if Commissioner Gomez comes in and she doesn't have to provide supplemental funding beyond the CEQA, and then I come in and they want to tell me I do, I'm gonna say, oh, but she didn't. So it has no teeth for us to say, okay. So I think if we say, instead of may, if we say will be required,
And Chairman Hammond, if that's subsequent to the SEPA, the mitigated negative declaration, if those things you find that it is significant, that's where your standard's gonna be,
Yes.
legally. Significant, that in order to reduce that, they may be required to put double pane windows. They may be required to put a 16-foot wall. They may be required to do more trees, only if it's something that determined based on CEQA environmental impact, or it can't be mitigated without doing this. Now am I making it easy for our attorney? So those are things that if you're going to require that, and remember, this is 15%, 35%, so these are the new ones. If you're going to require that, at least they can't mitigate this any other way. And this is what I talked about earlier about that one they put in windows. They just did that on their own.
yes.
But that's not, but it may, this is putting it on staff and on them to say, if you can't mitigate that any other way, the noise, without doing X, Y, Z, you may be required. So it's got to be based on, if they didn't, if the mitigated negative, it can't mitigate it any other way, it's highly significant. That's going to put that, a lot of determination on that.
Yeah, I think, and this may be a question for our attorney. There's got to be a nexus, right, to be able to require any additional funding from the applicant. So at this point, without having a project, and I think that's why the policy includes may,
Yeah.
to be able to come up with a nexus to be able to require the additional funding. Saying will be required, I think it's pretty strong, and I don't know, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, I think that is pretty correct right now. I think if you do put the will be, you're taking it, I think, too far with certain projects in trying to, you know, basically be specific to what that project can do or can't. So I wouldn't recommend, obviously, shifting that language to will be, because it does have to be related and, I guess, fit the project.
Yeah, and just for some little background, like when we ask for the tree contribution, a lot of times we kind of work with the developer, say, hey, this is what the city really wants you to do, and we try and encourage them to do that. This is just providing some additional background to say, hey, or just like when we did the Veterans Memorial, we encouraged them to do that. So this is just kind of some additional information where this is coming from, why we're asking for these things.
And one more clarification, clarifying question. You know, and you brought up a really good point, Kenneth. Most of the developers that come in are more than willing to go above and beyond and really work with us. I think this good neighbor policy is kind of just to make sure that maybe those that aren't as open would make sure they have a guideline. Now, in order to enforce this, if the council approves it, I'm getting ahead of myself, I think. If the council moves to approve, is there a stipulation that says that every new development, warehouse development, would have to also abide by the good neighbor policy?
Just to remember that this is a policy, and so this is our way of getting ahead of ourselves. If we feel that there's a lot of resistance from the development community, then we need to codify this in the code.
Okay.
So right now, this is a policy document. Most industrial developers abide by it because they
want to be good neighbors.
They want to be good neighbors. So unless they don't want to be good neighbors, then we need to start codifying.
Okay, so that would be like the next step if like it got crazy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm good. Everyone else, you got another?
I have a
Okay.
few, sorry.
Commissioner Gomez.
Commissioner Gomez, thank you. This is just an awesome opportunity. As you can see, we're definitely taking advantage. So goal number 3, the recommended policy, number 2 says adequate turning movements at entrance and exit driveways shall be provided, subject to city approval. So that means that whoever's occupying the warehouse needs to provide the entrance and exit plan in the development, but as well how can I put this?
They also have
Not
to
just-
provide a turning movement plan.
Yes, but not just the developer, but it's going to be enforced with the occupant, is that correct?
I don't know that we can enforce.
Because I feel like it's the developer, this is the entrance, this is the exit, because I've already seen it happen in some new developments. Yeah, yes. And they're not abiding by the signs that are at that warehouse for truck routes or truck entrance and exit. If we can work on the wording on that to make sure that not just the developer, but it also enforced with the occupant. And that the occupant abide by the city-approved driveways. On top of that, number 1, truck routing plans shall be consistent with the City of Paris truck route plan. I believe, is it possible to also have the developer submit their truck plan for that specific site to the city for it to be approved? And that the occupant enforce it. We find ourselves in a position where someone needs to be held accountable. And I think that if we go to the source itself, then these are the ones that are going to implement those roadmaps and provide them to their truck drivers, even though most of them already know. But and let them know on top of that. It'll also support either our code enforcement or whoever's going to be enforcing those truck routes as well. So that way they have a backup when it comes to that point and they have to be, given a warning or whatever it is at their citation.
Oh, those are good comments. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Let's see. Can we add something to that policy as well in regards to parking? I know that there's established overnight parking within the warehouse distribution center. Is there anything that we can add to that in regards to overnight parking being visible to the nearby, the sensitive sites? Because I've seen whether it's the boxes, is it the boxes or the actual, yes, the actual rig itself, where they're parked in the actual parking lot that's for cars, car parking lot that's meant for the employees. So is there something that we can add to that to make sure that it is enforced as well? Because if they're building these big, tall walls, decorative walls that so it can't be viewed, it defeats the purpose if they're parking them in those empty spots. And they shouldn't be there. And we don't even know if they're idling or not, so they shouldn't be there.
We can add language, we're not visible from the public right away.
Thank you. And then I like the fact that you put on there about parking within the residential area. I think I saw that in there. Yes, no, let's see. Yeah, no spilling over, trucks into surrounding public streets are prohibited. Oh, that's great. Okay, that's it for me, thank you.
Thank you.
So if I can continue with the
Vice
goal
Chair
number
Shively.
2. I think goal number 2 somewhat needs to be cleaned up and join redundant items on here. For example, the 1G, the minimum of 5% is required by the, or as required by the Cal Green Code, whichever is greater employee parking shall be designated for electric or other alternative field vehicles. And take item 15, at least 10% of all passenger vehicle spaces, parking spaces shall be electric vehicle ready. At least 5% of all passenger vehicles parking spaces shall be equipped with a working level 2 charger, quick charger. You know, that 2G actually says only 5%, but 15 says 10% need to be ready, 5% have to be, or 10% have to be ready, but 5% of those 10% have to be provided. I believe that's what the intent of that number 15 is. And then number 16 and 17, one says encourage replacement of diesel fleets with new model vehicles, and then 17 says require operating the cleanest vehicles available, which most likely would be the newest models available. So that one's two of them that are tough to combine or distinguish against. One is encouragement and one is requiring. And then same thing in, let's see if I can find it here. Number 1H is encourage replacement of diesel fleets with newer models, so that's a repeat. So I think these definitely need to be reviewed, and I can go through more of them, but I think staff can just review it closely and go through and select the most stringent of each one and clean it up and probably reduce a couple pages off this whole.
Will do. Thank you.
There was one specifically here. Yeah, there's a couple redundancies in there. I'm sure it's in more than one category. But I do like the fact that it's no longer an option to provide them. I mean, they have to provide at least 5%, which is great. And I'm sure Commissioner Lopez will be happy with that as well.
Okay. I thought you were going to get off easy, right? My only suggestion, my last thing I would say, look at all the words require, because anytime you put require in writing, watch out. Okay, I don't even care if it's vehicles, electric, watch it. Because when you start requiring stuff, they go nuts out there with the lawyers. So you have to be careful, and I'd look at every one of those in that section and say the word require as opposed to encourage. If they interchange, some things can be encouraged, like using cleaner vehicles, but they're going to say, what vehicles? Give me specificity and show me where they can do it. I know they have a developer's mindset at 20 years, so they're going to hit you. On the other hand, if you have specificity in certain things, stations like that, none of the developers have a problem with that. But when you start saying you have to do, well, even the state has problems in all of these retail with the same issues that we're having here. So I would just go through that whole entire thing, look at the word require, legally where it makes sense versus encourage. Like you say, within 1,000, health assessment risk assessments for industrial users within 1,000 feet of sensory receptors in accordance with AQMD guidelines. What does that mean? So I'm within 500 feet, and you say within 1,000 feet. I'm looking at this as a level lawyer and going, what do you mean, 1,000 feet? You told me I'm 300 feet away from the, well, now it's within 1,000 feet. Well, 1,000 feet is 5 blocks away. So you got to watch the word require on some things. So I would just say, I'm not complaining about it, I'm just saying, with specificity, go down each one of the things. These are guidelines, guys, too. You know, this is not conditions of approval if you don't do this. This is worked out with ad hoc. A lot of this stuff is ad hoc. A lot of this stuff is AQMD. A lot of this stuff is CEQA. A lot of stuff is mitigated. So you're going to see this stuff at that time get more in specificity. I think the idea that's good about this is presenting things that have never been, it actually should have been done 15 years ago, okay? When they started building these warehouses, that's the only thing I'm concerned about. It wasn't done back then, so now we're kind of doing it after the fact, okay. But it's quite a bit on the new ones that are coming in versus the ones that are already entitled, the ones that are already built. I don't have to do it. Well, now the new ones have to. That's part of being a new kid on the block, right? You just have to come in and you have to have guidelines. But I'm just saying for staff, watch the word require. You know, and this is just doing contract administration for 20-some years. I had to be very specific about a contract in LA. Everything went to the city attorney. And they were mega mean people, okay? Really dotted every I crossed T. So and I tend to be like that because I'm very, very concerned about wording. But that's one of those, the only thing I would say about all the goals combined is watch that. Some things WRCI can say because they're not here. They don't have to enforce anything. So there's the wording and then there's the enforcement part that she talked about. That's going to be the issue because we're really doing on their honor system. They're going to put in vehicles. So who's going to know that? They're putting in this stuff. Who's going to know the assessments? So monthly reports, they could, I'm sorry, monthly reports can come from them. You see monthly reports from school? I see monthly reports from agencies. Really? You know, and I go there and say, what is this? It doesn't match. Well, you wanted a monthly report here. So it's the enforcement is the real big thing, and it's also a regional issue. Because this stuff, like Meridian, is blowing this stuff over this way. Well, Riverside could care less about Paris. But those trucks all over there come in this direction. Moreno Valley's coming this direction. Ours is going there. So it becomes a regional issue. So it's not just a Paris issue, it's a regional. So Mead Valley, all those places get our trucks. You know, Sanderson is a little far away, but definitely Menifee. So that's one of those things too that I think looking at it from a regional standpoint, it's going to take more than just Paris saying, yeah, we're doing this and doing that. Oh, right across the street is the city. Oh, they're affected. That's a good neighbor policy, right? So a good neighbor means those neighboring cities. So I think we're going to have some discussions at a higher level and those levels as well. So I appreciate what's here. And since this is not a hearing, I appreciate what's written. I have no problem. You're seeing the specificity of this planning commission. We get down into the real gravy, as one judge called it. And so I think it's important to do that. But before we send it up the chain, it's one of those things where we want to make sure we cover it. We may not cover everything. I probably missed a few things. But as much as we could to try to give some insight.
I just wanted to add one more thing. Vice Chair Shively said something that reminded me that, you know, the state of California does have guidelines for models that are being used on the road as far as diesel trucks. And every year not every year, but they're phasing out vehicles before a certain year. So maybe that's something that we can add is by following state recommendations or something, just to make sure that we're always sticking by that. We're not saying, oh, you need to have a newer model, just we're following the Department of Transportation guidelines, just to align it and make sure, and that will change. So that way, when we're saying following state guidelines, we remove that ambiguity where we're like a little bit more concise.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Do we have to, Justania, there's a recommendation for this item.
I think we do
Do
this.
we have to take action on the 2 items, even though it's a business item?
Are you saying for the resolution or?
Mm-hmm, yes.
Yeah, but are you?
Yeah, that's, don't
Like-
expect me to read it.
What's the recommendation? To
Yeah, we did draft a resolution. This is not your typical business item.
Right.
So we would recommend, if you could, IT, can you put up the slide? The last slide for the presentation? Yeah, this is not your typical business item, so we would want to adopt a resolution in this particular case.
We want to or we don't?
We want to.
Okay.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, the way the resolution is drafted is adopting or recommending that the city council adopt or approve the guidelines or the policy. So if you are moving forward with that, you would want to specify that it would be with the
Amendments, yeah.
amendments.
Several, okay. Yeah,
So we should take public comments too in this.
yeah,
particular
that's
case.
next. Yeah, very good, very good. Good luck with that stuff. We'll be here another hour and a half if we're going to. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to read this. At this time, if they're still awake, is there public comments from the Zoom for our IT people? Wonderful IT people.
No, Chair Hammond, there is not.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Nobody out there seems to have public comments. Okay. I don't see anyone. Okay. And with that, we bring it back. Wait a minute. Give me a second. Oh, no. Okay. Yeah, you had the green there, that was easier. Okay, requested action. We adopt resolution number 22-19, recommending the city council adopt the good neighbor guidelines for sitting new modified warehouse distribution facilities and determine the resolution exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines pursuant to sections 15060, C3 and 15061, B3, as the resolution will not result in a direct or reasonably foreseeable indirect physical change in the environment, nor will it have a significant effect upon the environment. Subsequent to or added to the several amendments, I hope you don't expect me to go through several amendments that have been to this, as duly noted by staff, and we will trust staff with the several amendments that were added to this. Okay. You did get them, right? Somebody did get the amendments, right?
I want to make sure I want to read them all.
I'm going to try to summarize them.
No.
You would.
No.
We got a couple of hours, please.
Yeah. Okay, so we're ready for a motion and a second. And we'll probably have to verbally say it. We don't have the thing to vote, right? No. Okay. Motion's been made by Vice Chair Shively.
Commissioner Jimenez, I second the vote.
Oh, there he goes. And seconded by Commissioner Jimenez. Okay.
Mr. Chair, when the motion was it made stating with the amendments?
Yeah. We just don't, we didn't want to read them. I mean, 10 o'clock? Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Gomez? Yes. Commissioner Lopez?
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez?
Yes.
Vice Chair Shively?
Yes?
And Chair Hammond?
Yes.
With a motion of 5 yeses and 0 nos, this motion passes.
Excellent. Okay. It's not coming. Oh, here we go. We're moving to public comments. Anyone who wishes to address the Planning Commission regarding items not on the agenda may do so at this time. We don't see anyone in the audience, but also on Zoom. So I'll just ask for the sake of posterity, is there anyone on Zoom for public comments on any subject that is not necessarily brought up tonight?
No, sir.
Thank you very much. And seeing no one in the public, we will close the public comments portion. Move to commission members' announcements and/or reports. And anyone's welcome to go if they have any. Commissioner Lopez.
This is Commissioner Lopez. Just wanted to thank Kenneth, Patricia, and the Economic Development team for your guys' presentations tonight. Also, I want to congratulate the kiddos for going back to school. I know the mornings have a lot of traffic nowadays in the streets, but it's good for them. I know they're gonna enjoy the school year, and I wish them the best for the school year. Also, I know we had a scary incident this past weekend with the gas leak. I'm just happy that nobody got hurt during that incident, and I'd like to thank our first responders for acting adequately during that situation and taking care of it as soon as possible. Next week, we have the Enchanted Hills grand opening. So I'm going to be going to that event. I heard that there's going to be a lot of food vendors and stuff, so I think it should be a great experience to get the family out there and see the new park. Besides that, I just want to say thank you and have a great night.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Gomez, Commissioner Lopez pretty much, put it on in a nutshell. Thank you for that. Yes, and that's all I have to say. I look forward to being at the Enchanted Hills opening as well. So thank you, everyone, for your presentations today and for your patience with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jimenez, amazing presentations today, and I want to really commend the staff for listening so attentively and taking such detailed notes and the feedback we provide. And even before doing all this, you have taken into account our feedback, our comments, and you can tell have been implemented very seriously. Echo everything my fellow commissioners have said. I look forward to being at the Enchanted Hills grand opening. I did want to bring up to our engineer, the street signs and street speed limits on Ryder are still not matching. Those have not been fixed. And I can't take pictures because I'm usually the one driving, so, not safe. Code enforcement does not need to follow me.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? The street name signs?
The speed limit, there's a sign on the pole that has I want to say it's 45 and it says 40 on the street, or the other way around, but there's numbers on the street that are painted on the street, and then there's a sign, and those numbers are not.
Corresponding.
Yes.
Understand.
They're not friends. Also, I know I've seen this, and I've heard this request made. I don't know if there's an efficient way to communicate street closures within the city to the community members. I know there's a lot of work coming or has been happening on the corner of Ramona and Evans. Both sides of the street. One day they were closing the left turning lane coming southbound. Next day they closed the right turning lane. I just find out because we drive that way to go to high school and coming back home. So I have been impacted, and had I known ahead of time, I would have probably planned to leave a little bit earlier. So I don't know if there's a more efficient way to just communicate, even on social media ahead of time with our community. And I know they've brought that up, but I think the other issues are usually Caltrans, what's on the freeway or on-ramps, off-ramps. But I think when it's Evans and Ramona, I think that is our jurisdiction.
I'll definitely inform the construction people, but typically they put up notice boards, electronic notice boards about a week before any activity, but I'll look into it.
Yes, because I drive by there every single morning, and there have been at least no signage coming westbound. So from Menifee towards Evans, am I going the right direction? Yes, right? We're going westbound to get on the freeway. So going westbound, there hasn't been any signage from as far as, is it Ryder and Ramona coming all the way up? There has not been any signage, no electronic signage. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So
Vice Chairman Shive.
I guess my announcement just is that, just as a reminder that COVID is still prevalent and it's increasing, so you may not have to wear a mask, but at least wash your hands and not touch your face when you touch something else would be the best advice I got if you don't wear a mask. And then, just as a general announcement, we do have some progress on an apartment complex. It sounds like they're moving some dirt behind Wiener Schnitzel and the old Walmart shopping center, so it's good for us, something we needed.
Thank you, thank you. Real quickly, and probably two of these are going to be involved, the engineer. Could you, not tonight, give us an update on Van Buren and its connection to Paris? Because I don't know what they're doing over there. And it's going to affect Paris if they go to that western way. Nobody's talking about. We need to talk about that. Major issue that's coming through there. The other one is Placentia. I know that's going well. They're talking about a gas station. I don't know what you're talking about. But that didn't go through us. But the idea is the Placentia, that is to be completed hopefully by this year, if there's some particular date on that. These are updates for the next week. And this is on poor Kenneth, who's already overtaxed. Truck route signs on Ramona and other streets. 36 inches, I don't care, saying you do it, or you're going to be penalized. So we need the signs. We need an update on when that's going to happen. We're going to $5,000 fine per minute or whatever. But those signs need to be on that street. They're still parking in front of that hamburger place. See, that's what happens when you're retired. You see everything. They're parking behind the McDonald's over there on Ramona. They're parking over there. Got to see some tickets. Not going to happen for the police until they see a sign. Okay. So nothing happens with law enforcement until they see something. I'm just telling you right now, work with them. So that's a major issue because we're talking about truck routes, we're talking about parking areas, we're talking about good neighbor, but we're still allowing people to park. On major street like Ramona, it's like in your face. I'm just going to park in your face, and what are you going to do about it? Virtually nothing. So I know there's some progress, but I mean, just those updates would be nice in more detail. Next week, I would appreciate that. Otherwise, I will be at the 26th. I got invited to that a long time ago, but at least it's in the evening, I think, so it's not 200 degrees.
Now we can go.
Yeah, well, it's not 200 degrees at that time, hopefully. I went to the initial thing and had a golden shovel in my hand. I don't know why they just grabbed me and said, you're going to do it. So, okay, do you really want me in the pictures? No, you're getting up here and that's all. I city manager, you're going to do it. Okay. So, but that's a major, major part. I mean, with a zip line, all kinds of stuff going in there. So many positive things, especially our Parks and Rec people. Please thank Michelle. I told her I wasn't going to be there if I didn't, for coming out. I appreciate that. And thank you, Kenneth, for answering what we need to do and those kind of things. We just need to look into that one issue we talked about. Okay, but I'm not going to do it because it's not on agenda. So it may be agenda item later. But the idea is that a lot of things are coming. That's why I wanted economic development. A lot of things are coming. We just want to be a part of that. We know we can't answer it. We know we can't direct them. It's a city council thing. It's department. But it's good to know because we do zoning. We have zoning and we have areas that may have general plan amendments if they want to put things. We need to know because if they're going to come to us, we're losing a lot of business space. We need office space. We need suit and tie office space. And, if those things start getting squeezed, we're going to have a problem. So we have a lot of retail, a lot of industrial, a lot of housing. Where's the suit and tie businesses? Even type C buildings. You know what I'm talking about. They don't have to be type A, but even type C buildings would be nice. That's another issue. Okay. And we know we have a tour coming up later on. Okay, with that, I say welcome, stay cool, and I'm going to go to air conditioning when I leave here. And we go to our Director of Development Service Reports, Mr. Kenneth.
Yes, good evening, Chairman Hammond, members of the Planning Commission. Just want to let you know that we're still working on the truck route. So we'll, when we have some more clarity about how we're proceeding, I'll give you an update. In terms of your planning for the next meeting, we'll have a meeting on September 7th, so put that in your calendar. And then the Planning Commission tour will take the benefit of having Ms. Brennis here and her connection with Riverside. So our next tour will be the Riverside area. She has connections with people there. so we can have access to facilities that we would normally not have access to. So we'll take advantage of that option as we look to build affordable housing in Paris. Other things to put on your calendar, there's we should send out maybe an email later this week. There's an organization called the Institute of Local Government. They have some planning commission training. I think they have some training available up in November of this year. If that's not enough sufficient time for arrangement, they'll have some other upcoming planning commission training in early next year. But just want to put that on your calendar. We have a budget. We increased the budget, so we don't have to move as much funding around to accommodate your needs. But so that's available to you. But with that said, have a good evening, and we'll look forward to seeing you September 7th.
Before we adjourn too, and then since we have the great Sylvia here, who I've known many years, so just as young as you used to be then. See, I can say that. Younger, yeah. But she won't beat me up when I get to the office. She will anyway, but that's okay. The League of California Cities Planning Commissioners thing. Notice I'm saying it's several months in advance. Orange County, right? So something to start thinking about in terms of getting ahead of the game. We were kind of last time, but it's going to be in what, March? Or sometime in the spring, I'm assuming, right? It's probably March.
Yes, this is a little different organization, so it depends. You want to stick with the League of California Cities?
Yeah. I'm just saying that's
Yeah.
it's far enough in
Correct,
advance to
yes.
where you got to make. They're going to start asking for reservations.
Yes.
But if we want to go, I think it's just something to look at the timetable so we know, and we can start making plans for that. I'm pretty sure you guys, if you went the last time, okay, it was well worth it. And they did ask for some ideas. I don't know if they want them from me because I'm a really bad person. I think they had me blacklisted. I got up and spoke in front of them, and I said, "You need to leave now." Okay. Just told me in Paris they said leave, right? But that's Northern California. This is Southern California. So this is going to be retail. It's going to be more into that stuff as opposed to up there where they worry about a bush, that they have to have too many bushes or something. I mean, stuff like what? But down here, it's going to be retail. It's going to be those kind of things. So I think that might be way in advance. That's the kind of person I am. I'm always way in advance, in March or something. So whatever information we have for them, the cost, the whole bit. If you want to go, people have time for plans. If you have vacation or school, they're going to want to know this much in advance in time. So we're like 8 months, 7 months away. That's not far. No. It comes like, okay. Anyway, sorry, but I just thought of that. I just thought. Okay. If there's nothing else, and I thank our secretary here. Hopefully we're getting there. We're getting there. And we thank our person in there for interpreting. We may have him come out and interpret one time. And we thank our wonderful IT people. I mean, these guys are really good. May have to call on you about a few things here, but they're really good. And they stay awake the whole time, too. That's it. Okay. Anyway, with that, and thank our sit-in city attorney that sat in. Robert, we're going to... How dare he? He's probably on vacation or something, right?
He didn't let us know.
Yeah, he didn't tell us in advance. We have to approve it. Anyway, we're adjourning, and without exception, I don't even think we have to worry about votes. There's nobody here is going to object to adjourning right now. So you literally can put any names down you want in any order, okay? With that, we adjourn this meeting. Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you for helping us out. And we really kind of baptized you by fire tonight, right? Okay. Okay. Good night. Okay. Give gavel. Wait a minute.